It's the Intergalactic Soul, the Honorable Brother, the Revolutionary yourself, Darius Lockhart, and I'm here to tell you to watch Powerbombshells every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel. That's right, every Sunday at 1 p.m., and that's on time, every time, because when we stand together, what time is it? That's right, it's nation time.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 104 of Powerbombshells. I am Sam. That is Mel. We are just two broads talking about the wrestling we watched, and hopefully you'll be able to hear us and see us. That's why we were a little bit late today, is because Mel said that on my end it was a little wonky. It was coming off, the audio was off, and the video was messing up, so I had to back out and try to fix it. So hopefully it's good. Hopefully my audio is not too far off from the screen too, so hopefully it's nothing too annoying, and I apologize in advance if there's some issues, because it's been raining a lot lately. I've been informed there's been solar flare activity.
That's what I was telling Tam. I was updating her on the we had M and X level solar flares this last few days, which the X is apparently the highest one. Okay. So those are the ones, and that one came from like the middle of the sun. It was very interesting. Bob and I, as I was telling Sam off air, we went into a solar flare quick hole because it also affects the auroras here. And we have a friend who has a cabin up north, and I've never seen the auroras. But Bob lived in northern Michigan, so he's seen them. Okay. So, and when there's solar flare activity, that's a good time to see the auroras.
Right.
So,
yeah, that makes sense.
And there hasn't been any. For the first time in like ever, there's like no snow in the upper peninsula of Michigan, or very little snow, which usually there's like, you can't get to his cabin in the winter because unless you have like because it's off the grid. But but it's up in Marquette, and so like he's been like, you guys can go there, and I'm like, wow, Lake Superior, auroras, but it's just got to be a time when you can get there, and then I was like, all right, so. We ended up paying attention to this stuff, and then I end up in click holes. Like I was telling Sam, my Google algorithm now shows me wrestling and science. So at least it's a good balance. At least I get
right.
That's been Science Minute with Powerbombshells.
Yeah, so well, I apologize in advance if there's any technical difficulties on my end today, because I don't know what's going on with it. Because on my end, like from what I can see and hear, like everything is perfectly fine. So I had no clue. And I was like, you sound like a robot. And I was like, what? I was like, we're supposed to be live like right now. And so hopefully it's all good. Nikki said that Mel will have a football related hat on. Really dug deep with my guess.
No, you were close. You were close, but I got the Seahawks jersey on. So, I mean, football related. She was close.
Close enough.
You were 2/3 right. So
I went with the this Johnny Wrestling Panda shirt that I got. I found it on eBay last year, and actually the girl who was selling it was here in Charlotte, and I was like, I got to watch. Since I have to watch WWE, I was very excited. On Friday on SmackDown, I got to see DIY versus Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, and the match was great. It was the first time the four of them have ever wrestled before, because we were talking about it, the way their time overlapped in NXT. Either they were DIY had already split, and Pete Dunne was either doing his bruiserweight stuff or he was doing the broserweight tag team stuff, and Tyler Bate was doing, I think he was in another tag team. And so it was the first time, at least because we checked cage match and stuff, and we were trying to figure it out. And I was like, so from what it looks like, that was the first time matchup, but it was really good. And then also I love pandas, and also this panda is very angry, and wrestling makes me angry. Or not wrestling itself.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Wrestling makes me angry. So I was like, you know what? We're just gonna go with the angry panda today, because that's
and I went with Bob. Actually suggested this is my. He's like, you need to, because I said as I was chatting with Jim a little after his show, because he also has had the same frustrations that we have and has been avoiding the products. He kind of had and I feel like this too. I had a little bit this week. It was hard to watch this week, just anything, because I was mad.
Yeah.
But he like needed to sort of vent, and he did a really nice job on his show yesterday. And
Yeah, I
so
need to
Bob
catch
said you
that.
should go with your camo militant hat because I'm about to
go.
savagely drag 3 men involved in a like crime against humanity, basically.
Right.
That, like, reverberated.
My dad knows like bits and pieces of what we've told him about the Vince stuff, and somehow I guess we left out the Brock Lesnar part, not on purpose. It just didn't come up.
You
or
didn't think about
maybe
it.
we thought we told him, and this morning he sent a text and he said, "What the hell happened with Brock Lesnar?" He's like, "All I did was read a headline, but I didn't click the article." And Nikki and I told him, and he was like, "What an asshole!" He was like, "These people suck." I was like, "Yes, pretty much."
Straight up, that's exactly right. They fucking suck.
They do.
There it was.
And before
was
we get in,
down.
yeah, there's probably going to be some F-bombs today. Hopefully we don't like get demonetized for it, but the stuff is really just makes us angry. So try to keep
well, and I was saying this.
Use other words so we don't get demonetized.
Yeah, that's I was trying to wait.
I don't want to punish Fight Game Media for our F-bombs.
I actually said before the show, I was like, I'm going to watch myself. And then I immediately blew it right there. So,
yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, I did it a couple of weeks ago. I started talking about it and got irritated and it came out. So that's how it happens. And I see this comment over here. I'm not ignorant because actually I just told Mel about that because right before I signed in, there was a select report that has come out that says that Okada is expected to sign with AEW. He's been weighing his options and has decided that AEW is the best place for him. Let me check the select. I think they said we're told that the deal was effectively agreed to in the last couple of weeks, but we haven't confirmed that pen has been put to paper as we're told it's being finalized. AEW has been confident that they'd land him for the last several weeks, even as far back as mid-January. We haven't heard firm plans on when he's slated to debut. It is supposed to be after he finishes up his New Japan commitments. And I believe he has the 23rd and the 24th, right? I believe that's what the dates were. I think he had a few more. Like today was obviously the match with Tanahashi. So I will tell you now, Mel and I have not watched this show today. Please do not spoil it in the comments.
Yes, please. I mean, please, for the people that are here at this very moment, please give it. It's been a week, and Sam actually, like, especially Sam, works. Like she really actually works these stories. So she during the week is actually working the stories as well as watching the wrestling and going through what she, and having life. And so, I mean, I think it's important to remember that sometimes we're not always totally caught up as much as we'd love to be.
Yes. And obviously it was like, I think it came on at like 3 or 4 a.m. here. And so like I've been trying to avoid, both of us have been trying to avoid Twitter and spoilers as much as possible. So I would just, please, thank you in advance. But so I don't know who won. I don't know what, but if I remember correctly, he had 2 more shows. I think the 23rd and the 24th.
I think there are commitments because he has to do Chicago, I believe.
Right. And so I believe that's correct. Just says
I bet you that Chicago show is his last show. The Wintrust show.
That's in April.
Oh shit. So
it's April the No, it's April the 12th. No. Nikki of course said what I said. And we selfishly hope that it will be a revolution. I guess we'll be there. So we're already getting an incredible show. So
yeah. Let me to quote my husband, I hate Sam so much right now. And then I was like, but we were like, we love it. It's like, oh, this card, it just gets better and better every week.
Yeah, because when Eddie made it, we heard Eddie and we were like, Nikki and I were like, oh my God, we're gonna get Eddie. And then he challenged Danielson and we were like, oh my God.
I know.
Like,
I'm so excited for you guys. I am so excited to hear about it. I'm so glad someone I know will be in the building and I can talk to. Holy crap. You guys, this is so awesome. You're getting, like, you got to go to the first All In. This is going to be another one that's on that level.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is going to be a really special show. And I was, and I didn't think about it until last night because, I think nearly everybody in our group text is going. And there's one person I'm not 100% positive if they're going, but pointed out that this could be the last time we see Bryan Danielson. And I was like, I don't want to talk about that.
Oh,
I don't want to think
right,
about
because he's retiring too.
Well, he's going part-time at least.
Yeah,
and
he's gonna be.
So I'm sure he'll still wrestle most of the pay-per-views, but who knows when they're going to come back to Charlotte, or close enough, or Greensboro as this case. So who knows how close he'll be here again. So I was like, I didn't think about that. So now I was like, now that match is gonna be even more special because it's already gonna be great. And Eddie made the stipulation, like, if I beat you again, you have to shake my hand. Like, you can't deny that I've beaten you twice. He was like, so you have to shake my hand. And so I assume that's where we're going with this. But I mean, I'm really excited about it. And I can't wait to see his match with ZSJ. And I keep hearing some great things about ZSJ saying that he wants to retire with New Japan and all this stuff. And I was like, please just push him to the moon, because Zach
all I know is I did see one tweet from Bryan Danielson saying, I'm no longer the greatest technical wrestler in the world.
I saw tweets with his backstage comments, and I was like, I'm not even going to read it.
That's the only thing I saw, and I was like, get off Twitter. That's what I saw. And I was like, what are you doing?
All I saw was Bryan Danielson backstage comments, and I was like, nope.
Get off Twitter. I was like,
I got off
because I forgot. It slipped my mind that rematch.
I know that's happened to me plenty of times. I'll forget there was a pay-per-view while I was sleeping, and I'll open Twitter and there it is, and everything will be spoiled within like 3 tweets in a row, or a wrestler will tweet and I'll see it. I'm like, shut up.
And you know what? That could mean anything really, because the match could still go anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean,
and if he like, it's not that one. I guess I should be
got these matches. Like it wouldn't. When we started as wrestling fans, there was no chance in hell we were ever getting anything. That was anything like this. Like, we could only dream about it, and now it's like happening. It really happens. It happens every week on a show. It should be we should be really happy and excited about wrestling right now, like, because it's so open, and it's going back to like the days of when it was like in the 70s, like mid-late 70s, it had this huge peak. I mean, it was on TV everywhere. Normal people were watching wrestling, just like in the Attitude Era, where like, I remember my cousin saying to me, I knew that wrestling went mainstream when the jocks were showing up with Austin 316 shirts at school.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I've been here the whole time. But so I don't know. It's just
Daza is here. So
hey, Daza, welcome.
Daza.
Happy movie trailer Super Sunday.
I was just telling Nikki about I had YouTube on, and I let the ad play while I was doing my makeup, and I saw, I guess, what is the Super Bowl ad? They went ahead and played it, and it was a T-Mobile commercial. It's Zach Braff, Donald Faison, and Jason Momoa, and it's a Flashdance themed T-Mobile commercial. And so I was like, oh, the Super Bowl commercials, they're here.
We were watching Dynamite, and there was a commercial for the Super Bowl commercial. I can't remember which company it was.
Oh yeah, well,
they had a commercial for their commercial. Their ad. It was
listen, if they're going to spend that type of money, I guess I can't blame them.
Dude, it's amazing. Well, it's because of lost revenue. I mean, overall, it's because of streaming and lost revenue, because advertisers have to adapt, and they don't know. Big business does not adapt quickly and well.
No.
But that could work to our advantage in the meantime. So who knows?
Dawson said it's nice of the NFL to put a game on between the trailers, and they're putting on an Usher concert as well.
And the Usher concert, I haven't seen. I was like, wow. I was like,
they did.
Is the song family friendly?
He'll have plenty of stuff that he can do. It's funny because they have done a commercial for the Super Bowl for the Super Bowl halftime performance, and Nikki sent it to me the other night, and it's Ludacris and Taraji Henson and Wesley Snipes, and there's like a couple other people, and they're like they're in Vegas and they can't find Usher, and they're like, the Super Bowl is this Sunday, like where is Usher? And it's like, so I guess you're gonna have to follow it, like little. That's I'm assuming the commercials are gonna play during the game and lead up to Usher coming out for the Super Bowl. But I think Sunny will probably be pretty excited for it because Usher is her favorite, and she got.
Okay, I was gonna ask you because you work in the music industry and you know, like, I was gonna say, is Usher like because sometimes it's like when they brought the Stones out, and I was like, okay, that's cool, but is it cool to like mainstream audiences, or is that just for us like older people that are that had, or the older than even me people? So I was like, is Usher still cool?
Yeah, Usher is still, especially with our demographic because we grew up with him.
Okay.
And he was on, and then he's still putting out music. Like he puts out new stuff, and he's been doing it. He just did it. He did a Vegas residency, which is how Sunny got to see him. It wasn't through Make-A-Wish, but there was another foundation. They worked with the Children's Hospital, and they found out that Usher is her favorite singer. So they sent her to Vegas for her birthday, like right after her birthday. And so they all four went, but they could only get 2 tickets. And so
that's right.
Her dad
is telling me this.
Yeah, her dad's a really big Usher fan, and so that's how she listens to Usher. So the two of them went together. Then then Jade and Logan did their own thing since they couldn't get tickets. But yeah, it was she got to meet him briefly, so she was super excited. So I think she is probably very much looking forward to the halftime show today. And then who else?
Okay, that makes sense because obviously, like within our age, because we're within like 5 years of each other, basically within our age range. I guess we would have been the ones listening, so we would we have our old albums that our kids would say albums.
Yeah.
How old am I?
And like she knows, like it's so funny because she like knows every song and was just she was super.
Cute. Oh, that's so cute. It reminds me that one of my all-time favorite BTs ever that I will always remember and love.
Oh, I think I know where.
Vegas and saw Backstreet Boys, and we're singing every word, and they were doing every move. I literally I have learned Backstreet Boys songs. I was singing them at my physical therapy one day. And all the therapists were laughing at me because they were like, how do you, and I was like, hey, if Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks can do every move and sing every word to these guys, I am not even it's cool. Yeah. Kenny Omega.
Nikki and I
we're talking about one of the top wrestlers of our generation. And he is cool and doing Backstreet Boys moves, okay? It's fine.
Yeah, Nikki and I were cute. We were into boy bands. Like I saw actually Backstreet Boys before they got famous here. I saw them when I was like, I think I was 15 when I saw them, and they had gotten popular in Europe because they started. That used to be the thing, and then they would send like the big pop groups would go to Europe and they perform there and like they would get really popular there. Yeah, and then they would come back to the States and then like take all that success that they had over there. Like they would only release songs like in the UK and not here, and stuff like that. And that used to be back in our day when they sold CDs, they would sell like you could go, because I used to work, my first job was working at Media Play, and so they would have like UK specific CDs from different artists. You could only they would have an extra track or two that you could only get the
my
UK
friend
version
worked at ours was called Bull Moose in Maine. It was the store, and there are a bunch of them all over, and we happen to have one in my town. We were lucky enough that my best friend in high school got a job there, and she would get like all the free samples and stuff, and so we were listening to music. Like it was so great because you were listening to music that you couldn't get elsewhere. And we were in Maine, and we're at the end of the supply chain where I'm from. We're pretty much at the end of like where everything gets there kind of last. And it's just the way things move. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So the influences took a while. Like I didn't even figure that out till I moved to DC and was listening to like Ben Folds 5, went home and no one had any clue who I was talking about.
Right.
And it was like, oh crap. Everybody
do all the major market cities first. They do like even still, like, because that's what I do, like I work in radio,
Right.
so that's what they do. Like they start obviously with New York, LA, and Chicago. Those are the three big. Then by the time it trickles down to Charlotte, which we're a medium to large size market, and this like how they have there's market sizes, obviously, like what TV things do, and touring and all of that. And so like,
and I'm
by
in
the time like
Motown,
Charlotte
so,
gets
you know.
yeah, by the time it gets to Charlotte, like New York has been playing it for 3 months and they're sick of it. And they're like, we're ready for new stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean? And then it trickles down to everybody else. And so
you'll appreciate this. We moved from Seattle to this part of the country just in time for the Snow Patrol song, the Cars song, I think, Chasing Cars or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We moved just in time for that to be brand new here. So we kept listening to it for another 10 years. We were like, so our joke every time we hear something like that is it's that new song by Snow Patrol. But it's great. And I will actually, to endorse your boy bandness and to also date myself, I personally had a door poster of the New Kids on the Block.
Me too. It wasn't a door poster, but I had my first crush was Joey McIntyre.
I was all over I switched at different times depending on what I was going through, because there were times where I was like, nobody else likes Jordan, so I'm gonna like Jordan. Like I'm some kind of little boy band edgelord or something. So weird. But I mean, yes, no, it's
I had New Kids on the Block stuff. I had I had a Joe Barbie doll. Nikki had she had Donnie.
That's so cute.
We had I had a sleeping bag. A New Kids on the Block sleeping bag. I had my older cousin went to see them, and I saved up. Well, my mom helped pay, but I saved up money for her to get a Joey McIntyre shirt from that tour, and I still have it. It's in the bottom of a drawer. It's probably yellow now because it used to be a white shirt, but yes.
Like no one would bring us to see them, but my best friend would like come over, and my sister and I, and we would all listen to our albums together, and we would all buy them, and we, do the dance moves just like everybody. And then, I mean, it was always like, I don't know. I love how that stuff carries over. I'm glad that there are ways to listen to music that are like more prevalent these days, but that's so cute. I love that you had like Barbie dolls and stuff. We like really had to save up and buy the posters and stuff ourselves. That was like,
I had posters. I had a giant, like they used to do the really big buttons.
Oh,
remember those like really big circle buttons? Yeah, I used to have one. I used to have
big into buying that kind. They were not gonna buy it.
I had that stuff. I had, of course, cassettes.
But I did get to see Def Leppard as my first concert ever.
Nice.
At 10.
Very nice.
Def Leppard when they were doing the Hysteria tour. And the people that were there were all so super cool because it was like at a baseball field. And so they like turned over one of the garbage cans and they were all like helping me so that I could stand up there and see everybody, because I had the biggest crush in the universe on Joe Elliott. And that was my crush at 10 years old.
I love it.
So it was the greatest. I would sit and watch MTV back when they had videos. Yeah.
I know.
Put my glasses on, but smoke my pipe. But I would wait for them to play Pour Some Sugar on Me. I would wait. I would sit and wait. That's why I know like every song from that era by like word for word, because I would sit and wait for them to play Pour Some Sugar on Me like over and over and over.
Yeah, and it was that reminded me of like, because of course we used to do the same thing, watching music videos all day long. Like we were, and like when Nikki and I used to have MTV Classic a few years ago, and we watched that all the time. Like it was always on.
It's Nikki like comfort food.
It is. And so but yeah, maybe you said it reminded me, like one time New Kids on the Block were on the Grammys, and my dad woke me up because they were on late, and my dad woke me up so I could see them.
That's so nice. I love it.
So Nikki said, mine was Danny until I got the Donnie doll. I don't really remember Danny being my favorite because I was so young, but that's what I've always been told. It's true. I can't confirm. Daza said Def Leppard is one of his favorite bands of all time. He's seen them 6 times.
Nice. Oh, when we were in Chicago for Forbidden Door, I think it was Chicago. No, it was Toronto. We were in Toronto. They were there. And I was like, damn it. If I had known that, I would have done that last night.
Yeah, right. Nikki said that, or Daza said that he wants to do some karaoke pour some sugar on me.
That'd be hilarious. If you ever get to my town, my pub does karaoke on Monday, and I'm told it's a lot of fun.
That sounds like
Nikki,
fun.
I was obsessed with Hysteria, the Def Leppard movie.
Yes, we used to watch it. It was on that VH1 movie. Remember when VH1 used to make movies?
Yes. I loved pop-up videos, one of my favorite things of all time.
My God. Nikki and I were huge pop-up video
Love that. I love process stuff. I love backstage. I love hearing that. Like, that's why when John introduced me to the fact that there was like that side of wrestling, the business, that's why it drew me. I love process. I love seeing how, like, even with him, I've watched his art change over 10 years and I love it. And I love hearing him tell me about like what he does to change the things and what he's like, because you learn things from that. And it's like, I'm not an artist. I doodle for my friends when I feel compelled, and that's the best you're going to get from me. But it's amazing. Like, I understand how art works. Like, it's cool.
Right.
Like, I know how to do art. I'm not an artist, but I know how to do it because I like,
right.
And I love that. I just love seeing things evolve and creativity. That's why wrestling's fun. That's why I've been trying to like remind myself to say something nice about wrestling every day.
That's right. I forgot we said we were going to start off we were going to talk about this episode of to say one nice thing that you like about wrestling or love about wrestling, and then we went on a nostalgia trip. So
these things happen.
Lost some viewers, I think, but that's all right.
They were like, I thought this was a wrestling show.
They're like, why are these old girls out here talking about New Kids on the Block?
I thought that they were going to talk about John Laurinitis.
Oh, we will.
Flipping
Just you wait.
I will definitely be talking about it. And that's why I put it in there. I was being very flippant, but I was very angry when I wrote the tag. And I had just started reading The Observer and had gone through about the first 3 pages. And that was when we got the graphic, and I built a link this week. So I was a little angry.
Yeah, I know. It was like, what image do I even put up here?
No, I love the moment. Mercedes was good.
Like, I'm just going to, because I mean, we all figured that it was Mercedes related, and I was like, thank God. I was like, whose picture am I putting up here? Because I was like, I gotta find something to put on here that will not.
We're not putting their pictures on anything.
No, never, ever.
Not ever. It's mostly because like
I
want people
emoji before I put a picture of them.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. It's all about the fact that I want people to understand that I feel like savagely dragging the people involved in these things. It's ugh. But so yeah.
So yes, wrestling shows are best when they go off on a tangent. Yes. And we do have to go off on a tangent a little bit to keep from screaming.
We're going to do the, what they call in business, the shit sandwich, where you do the good at the beginning, the crap in the middle, and then the good at the end. So we'll finish strong with positive things to say.
Works for me.
And I hate to use that analogy in this situation. I did not. That was very unintentional.
No, I understand. I didn't realize until, I know.
I would not even, I'm hilarious, but I will not pun about this. This is not fun territory. No. This is very serious business.
So since was that the good part of the sandwich, our nostalgia thing?
That was the good part. And then you do the crappy part, and then you finish strong with a good, so you go good stuff, all the bad stuff, and with good stuff.
All right, so that was, I guess that was our good stuff segment.
Yeah, so
there will be more good stuff at the end, and we'll circle back.
That's right,
exactly. There's a comment I saw earlier that I wasn't trying to ignore from Hassan, and if he's still here, hopefully we will. We'll circle back around to that when we get to the good part again.
Yes.
But
celebration part.
It's like, which crappy thing to start off with?
All right. So first of all, guys, like, content warning here. If you don't want to hear us talk about Ashley Masaro and John Laurinitis, and is it Rachel or Rachel?
Yeah, Rachel.
It is Rachel. Okay, Rachel Rose's the recent news coming out of Fightful about her and her situation of being fired for being stalked, essentially. I'm oversimplifying it at the moment, but if you guys don't want to hear about this, it's totally understandable. And we don't want you to be triggered or traumatized or re-traumatized. So we are going to come back at the end and we are going to talk a little bit about the Scott Moore and Rossy, and we're going to talk about big business at the end. So I say give us some time, because we're going to, again, savagely drag these
20
people.
or 30 minutes, and we talked about it for like an hour.
So. And we've got some, I like to have these here. So if you are feeling like, you need help, we've got some stuff up on here that'll just use it. They've made it easier than ever to contact someone for help. So do it if you need to. And we totally understand. So
yeah, absolutely. So I guess we will start with, do you want to start with Ashley?
Yeah, I want to get this out of the way because I have some things.
Yeah, we'll start with Ashley, and then that actually will kind of lead us into the stuff with Rachel, because they're kind of related as far as women not being protected in wrestling.
Exactly right.
So Ashley Masaro, I wish I had pulled up the Vice article. I meant to. So there was an article, and so if you are not following Tim Marchman from Vice, I highly recommend doing so, because he is on top of some of this stuff related to Vince and specifically Ashley Masaro. Of course, there are other people out there who are covering this as well, thankfully, because this needs to be, as many people as possible need to be covering the story again, because this is a story that, happened in the mid 2000s, came back up around the time of her death, periodically comes up when treatment of women is brought up. Unfortunately, she's the example that a lot of people go to, because it's such a tragic example, but it is an example of what can happen in this business, especially when women are not protected. So Tim Marchman came out earlier this week. He has an article so Ashley Masaro, I guess briefly, if you're not familiar with her, she won the WWE Diva Search in 2005, had no training whatsoever, and they just started booking her on to wrestle on Raw, like as soon as she had said that before, like she had no clue what she was doing, and they made her wrestle. They were well aware that she had never wrestled before, and still put her in the ring. She was with the company only for, I believe, 2008. So she was only there for like 3 years, maybe 4, I guess, depending on when the talent search ended and that stuff. And so during that time, she was part of the tribute to the troops that they do every single year, that they love to tout and shove in your faces about how they go honor the troops, and they used to go overseas. Now they generally do bases here in the States, I think, is what they have kind of trained, that they realized it's quite dangerous. And so but anyway, at the time they went, Ashley and Maria were the 2 women who were on that tour. I'm not sure if there are any other women. I believe it was just the 2 of them. They were in Kuwait. It was very hot. It was and was reaching like well over 120 degrees and things like that. Ashley said that she started feeling dehydrated, and so she was taken to get treatment for that. And in the time she was being treated, she was assaulted by a doctor, and she told the WWE doctor when they got back to the States, and she says that doctor told Vince and some other higher ups about it. They brought her in for a meeting, and basically said, "We're sorry that happened to you, but please don't say anything because it will ruin our relationship with the military." And she said that it had already been decided by the time that she got there that this is what was going to happen. And so she has a sworn affidavit about this that she made. They were trying to do another, it was back in the time in the, I think 2017, I may have my dates wrong. They were trying to do, several wrestlers were trying to do a lawsuit related to CTE, head trauma, things like that, which she also says that she had because she was not properly trained. But they decided to leave the sexual assault stuff out of it because it wasn't, I guess, pertinent to what the actual lawsuit was. And I guess they were afraid that, like, they just wanted to try to stick to that. But she did make a sworn affidavit in front of a judge about what happened to her. So it is on file. There's also some, you have to, there's some other information that's out there, but it's under the military finally in 2019 decided to investigate this 10 years after it happened. Are you muted?
So they sent her to, yes, I am. I just wanted to, the train was being loud. And so they sent her to what was supposedly an army hospital. And it was the gentleman, not the disgusting piece of shit that did the horrible thing to her.
Right.
Was supposed, he was fronting as an army doctor, but it turns out that the Navy was in charge of that facility. And so Naval Criminal Investigations, NCIS, they came in and they did the investigation. And the results are closed. And if you want to get the results of that, you have to file a Freedom of Information request.
Several people have. I'm almost positive that Tim Marchman, who is covering this, probably has. I know that BJ Bethel has.
I was hoping so.
BJ Bethel, I know,
it's going to take forever.
Yeah, BJ Bethel. Well, the more people, I was talking to some friends, the more people who request a specific one, the faster they move. So BJ Bethel has put in for it. David Dixon's band has put in for it. I assume Wall Street Journal has because they're covering the story. Potentially,
I would hope
even
Dave or someone in his staff has.
I'm hoping News Nation may very well have, because they have, Ashley Banfield's show has been covering Vince and what is happening, and so there's very well that NBC could have,
and the Wall
NBC
Street Journal
and News
actually
Nation
may
could
push.
have it. So it could have. So we're hoping the more people that have requested this, the faster it will come out, because it does take some time generally to find out what was in there. But yeah, so I pulled up the article where she talks about, let me see if they've got
they told her not to let the good work that they were doing, not to let one bad event ruin the good work that they were doing. That's what they told her. This
and
own life.
Somebody pointed out to me last night that, of course, there was another Diva search about to happen, and you don't want the previous Diva search winner saying that she was raped in Kuwait before this happens. So he was like, that's another reason they probably wanted to keep it quiet, to make sure that it didn't ruin the next Diva search.
Her boyfriend came forward this week as well and has said in the past that Vince would literally show up at her hotel room door.
Yeah, he was calling her hotel room and her cell phone as well. And then she told someone, I can't remember, it was somebody within WWE. I don't want to name the wrong person. But she told him what was happening, and he was like, don't answer your phone and don't answer the door, and just, or answer and say that you don't feel good and you'll see him at TV tomorrow. And so that's what she did. But
to her credit, Maria Kanellis, because she was the one on the tour, they made all these wrestlers sort of like do basically because this came out, and Dave even said in the Observer, because I read the whole Observer this week, and one of the things that he talked about was when he was reaching out to them, they were very dodgy. They weren't giving him straight answers about what was going on there. And so they denied that they knew about it. The problem here is that they denied initially that they did this, that any of this happened. They made wrestlers do a bunch of PR to sort of cover this up. And Maria was the one person who said no and refused to do anything. And no one at the time could get her to talk about it. But she refused to say a word about it. She wouldn't come near the event. She was like, no. So But essentially, when John Laurinitis said this week, like what he said, because dude's trying to protect himself.
Yeah, I was trying to find the exact quote from John Laurinitis. I'd pulled the one I had up was about her quote, which she does say. So she does say in the affidavit that it was Kevin Dunn that she called and told that Vince was harassing her, and he was like, just say.
And it was Kevin Dunn, John Laurinitis, and Vince McMahon who told her all of the things that we just went through.
Right.
Those were the three asshats in the room that told her, don't say anything about it, because don't say anything about it for all the reasons that we said. And then, I mean, they went on a like PR tour to cover it up.
And I found, so this is a statement from 2019 after the affidavit was released. And so WWE said at no time was Vince McMahon or management of WWE ever informed by Ashley Masaro or anybody else that she had been sexually assaulted, drugged, raped, or sodomized by a military doctor with a nurse standing guard while on a goodwill tour in 2007 to a U.S. military base in Kuwait. At no time was there ever a meeting with Vince McMahon, Kevin Dunn, John Laurinitis, or other company executives in which she told them of such claim and was instructed to keep quiet. Well, John Laurinitis has released a statement via his lawyer that says any allegations that Mr. Laurinitis helped to cover up an alleged rape allegation is an outright lie. Johnny, like most upper-level management, at some time became aware of the allegations and ensured all proper WWE protocols were followed, including privacy for the alleged victim. We object to the use of the term cover-up, as no such plan or plot ever took place to hide or assist in the alleged rape. But he did confirm that upper-level management did know about it, but he says he's changing the wording of it to save his ass, basically.
Yeah,
but he is confirming that they did know about it. So he's directly contradicting WWE and Vince.
Well, everything that has come out of his lawyer now at this point is essentially confirming everything in Janelle Grant's complaint.
Right.
It's confirming what happened to Ashley Masaro, and this is like, the reason I'm taking this one a little more personal than usual is not just the assault portion of the thing, is that this drove this woman to take her own life.
Yes.
And she had a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a person who lost a parent at a young age and had to live with that. And I didn't lose them that way, but it doesn't matter how you lose them.
Yeah.
And they are implicit. They are directly responsible for that event. Ultimately, they have a direct connection to the end result of that child's future. Like you took this woman and you used her and you did these things to her and you allowed this to happen to her. The effects didn't just hurt her, they reverberated through her entire family and her daughter or child will continue to have to deal with that for the rest of their life. And now you're out here because you know that you're had. And I, real quick, devil's advocate, I am all about having the conversation about this was an unsafe workplace. File some, get a civil or a group suit going. That's fine. And so but for John Laurinitis to try and play like the victim here, seems just F off, dude. Like, no.
Yeah, and go ahead.
And the people involved in this, there's still people involved in this that are still at WWE right now.
Yes. Yeah. And so another statement I want to read that's also that further, this case is this stuff with Ashley is just, yes, it's infuriating. But then there was another, so a few days after this, Tim Marchman put out another article where it says that attorneys Constantine Kairos and Erica Mirabella, who represented Masaro and several other WWE wrestlers in a concussion lawsuit in 2018, also said, put this statement out from Ashley that says, during my time with WWE, I had observed Vince McMahon making out with other divas in the locker room, but he never paid attention to me, and I assumed I was not his type. This changed after my Playboy cover was released. I was fortunate enough to be allowed to fly on the company jet and stay at the same hotels as the executives for a period of time so that I could get home faster to spend more time with my daughter. On one of those occasions, Vince was attempting to get me alone with him in his hotel room late at night, and I felt extraordinarily uncomfortable. He began calling the hotel room phone and my cell phone nonstop. I called Kevin Dunn to explain the situation, and he said I should tell Vince I was not feeling well and I would see him on TV the next day. So I did. Immediately after that night, Vince started writing my promos for me. Vince does not write promos for female wrestlers. That is the job of the creative department. And he certainly wouldn't have, under any normal circumstances, written a promo for me, but he did. And the promos were written with the clear intention of ruining my career. I brought this first script Vince wrote for me to a WWE employee in charge of creative at the time, Michael Hayes, who, by the way, is still employed with WWE. So please keep that in mind. And said, you're not saying this. Who the expletive wrote this? And I told them that Vince did. He said, well, kid, these are the breaks, meaning that Vince wanted to end my career and destroy my reputation on the way out. He's known for this type of behavior, and he also did this to name Redacted upon her departure from WWE. In addition, after that night, each time I walked by him, he would make vulgar sexual comments that were clearly designed to make me uncomfortable. So since that statement has been released, some people have been tweeting out clips from that time period. And there was one clip where she had been injured during a match, and it's her and Maria and I can't remember who the man was, that they were walking Ashley up, like Ashley's in the middle. She's got her arms around them. They get to the top of the ramp, and Vince tells them that they have to have a bra and panties gauntlet match. And Ashley's clearly injured.
In the 21st century.
Yeah. And then as they're walking away, Vince is doing this and looking at Ashley and Maria's asses as they walk by. Then there was another clip that came out, and it is Ashley is backstage. Matt Hardy is backstage talking to Vince McMahon. Ashley comes running through. She's excited about something, and she bumps into Vince and makes him spill his coffee on his shirt. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for that to happen. I'll get it dry clean, and he's like yelling at her. So Matt Hardy's like, oh, it was an accident. Please don't yell at her. Don't, all this stuff. So Matt leaves the area, and he's like, oh, how do you feel? And she's like, well, I feel really bad. And he's like in her face, yelling at her, and it was extremely uncomfortable to watch. And Big said right after that scene was because in real life she bumped into him and made him spill his coffee, so he played it out on TV and yelled at her, screamed in her face, and suspended her on TV so he humiliated her because she did that to him in real life by mistake. And so I was talking to somebody about this, and I was like, these things were so common that sometimes I forget. And then I saw those clips, and I was like, oh, I remember these things. And it's so gross and disgusting. And people thought it was a character, and it turns out that this is what he did. He humiliated these women.
Grant's complaint, that's totally consistent with so many things that she said.
Yeah, the patterns are there.
It's the exact same kinds of things he was doing with her, humiliation, the assaults. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the same kind of stuff he was. It's exactly
look at the stuff
same.
With Trish Stratus.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is
where he made her bark like a dog. He made her get down on all fours.
All the way to that. Yes,
he was doing that storyline to make it look like she was having an affair with Triple H, and like all of this stuff that they were doing, and so I felt like I've always like, and that's what I saw. Somebody was like, oh, I forgot about that. And I was like, that's what I think when I think of the Mr. McMahon character, that's what I think of as Trish, that stuff he made her do. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and that feels like that was a form of punishment, because I kind of thought it then, but it feels like that was a punishment for her probably turning down his advances. And so that's how he got back at her. He humiliated her on national TV. And we were talking about how Tori Wilson was talking about a couple weeks ago about how she was afraid to it's like she just didn't think she was a good dancer and she didn't want to. And Vince was like, "Oh, I won't make you." Or no, she was talking to Canyon. I think that what I saw was it came from Canyon's book, and Canyon was saying, well, you just tell him that you don't want to dance. It'll be fine. You won't have to. And then the night before she was in her hometown, or the day that she was in her hometown, he was like, "You're going to dance and you have to." And she was crying. She was really upset. And so she talked to Canyon, and they were like, and Canyon was like, "Well, why don't you just use it as like a striptease or something, and just you take control and just do what you feel comfortable with, and people will love it." And she said that's what she did, but her family and friends were in the crowd. So Vince knew they were going to her hometown and her family would be there. And so he found ways to humiliate them in front of their own family and friends. Like, this is just...
The dude's a sociopath. Like, it's gross. It's gross. It's casting he looked like a giant dumbass on top of being a piece of shit to her. You could tell it legit made her cry. It's horrible. That's Nikki says, yeah, I don't need to watch that. Some of these things I do remember from back then.
I sent the clip to our group chat, and actually I sent it to somebody else, and he was not watching wrestling at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "I didn't know that this happened." And so we were talking about it, and I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "This happened a lot more than you realize." And then like looking back, like over, like you realize like what was actually happening, that he was just humiliating women because he could, and he was using it under the guise of the Mr. McMahon character. And it just, and there's people like Maria has kind of been hinting at stuff the last couple of weeks and hasn't come out and said directly, and I'm sure, I mean, she was there when the stuff with Ashley was happening.
I believe that they were fairly close.
Yes.
Is what the impression that Dave was giving was that they knew each other. I mean, I don't know. I'm speculating. I have no idea, but it sounds to me like she may have told Maria, and that, or
Maria
at least,
because Maria was with her on,
or at least have sought comfort from her in some way as a human,
right,
just to be like,
and
I don't know what to do.
Yes, that actually reminds me. I didn't have a chance. I was out doing some stuff. It was when it was sent. So there is back in 2006, when people obviously were using websites more often, there is a diary that Jimmy Hart was keeping because Jimmy Hart went with them to Kuwait, and this stuff is still up on their website, unless it's been scrubbed since then. So luckily people have been taking screenshots.
It might be because Dave did report on that in the Observer.
Yeah,
but he actually mentioned this. He talked about it. So
so it is so this tweet right here says, during the WWE tour of Kuwait 2006, where Ashley Masaro alleged that the military raped her, Jimmy Hart wrote 4 straight from the Hart diaries about the trip. And then one of the quotes was, "Our base escorts demand," parentheses, "Ashley be taken to the medical center despite her protest to the contrary." So in these screenshots, he's talking about how it's really hot outside. He's talking about Ashley and how Ashley and Maria look great. They meet the fire dogs in fire hall number 2, where they sign autographs and take photos. Ashley, noticing a dartboard on the wall, picks up a dart and promptly hits bullseye, much to the crowd's delight. She's so excited she knocks her Gatorade on the floor again, getting a rousing cheer from the crowd. She has no shortage of fire dogs to clean it up. Later, she puts on their fire gear and she cuts a promo for SmackDown. And he said by this time the temperature outside is rising to 130 degrees. So they go to the next stop, and this was kind of telling. Jimmy Hart says Maria, not to be outdone by Ashley, accepts the challenge to ride the toolbox, which requires her to sit on a metal toolbox in her dress in the back of a pickup truck and drive around the hangars. This is 130 degree weather. That metal toolbox is hot as hell, and she's in a dress. And it says that, and Jimmy makes it look like it's because she's trying to compete with Ashley, when in reality, it's probably because Vince told them to. But it says, so down here, he says, we are starting to feel the effects of the heat in order to deal with a hot climate. We are told to keep drinking water constantly. Even then, sometimes the heat can overcome you. At the next autograph session, Ashley begins to swoon. Our base escorts demand she be taken to the medical center despite her protests to the contrary. While doctors check her out, we proceed on to our next destination. And so this is where, that's where the assault happened.
And then they didn't see her again until she was brought back to the or the hotel where they were all staying by some unidentified military staff.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and so that's still, I mean, unless it's been scrubbed, that's still on WWE's website. It's like, geez. Luckily, people are smart enough to take screenshots. There was another quote, where Ashley was talking about going there before they had left, and she said that she knew that WWE would protect her and take care of her and assure that she came home the same way she left.
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
Just awful. And to Sir Eddie's question really quick, yes, Triple H absolutely knows.
There's no way he can.
He knows all of it.
It's so funny. I was saying that people won't ask the hard questions to him right now because of this and that and the whole thing. And then he's, had the audacity to say that he hadn't read the suit. I'm like, you know what? I want to know if he would leave his daughters alone in a room with his father-in-law. Because I bet the answer is no.
Probably not. Or not for very long.
Because that's just, and these people are all, like, the problem is the people that are still there. Bruce Pritchard was part of this too and knew a lot of these things. It essentially, like, what Ronda Rousey said about Bruce Pritchard, a lot of the stuff that Dave was writing
I keep thinking about that.
He is the head of talent relations. He took the position that Vince was in and Triple H was in, that, like, he's in their spot.
Yeah.
Like, as everyone got moved up.
And he's in there, he's in their inner circle. He's worked for them for 30 years. The same thing with Kevin Dunn. I mean, Kevin Dunn is gone now.
And he's trying to, like, dodge questions. He's like, well, it's an active lawsuit, so I can't talk about the lawsuit. And it's like, even I was reading a thread today, and the person was like, here's a whole bunch of questions that you could ask that aren't pertaining to the lawsuit.
I saw that. Yes, I saw that thread too.
And they were great questions.
There. They were excellent. Eddie asks, do you think that Triple H was involved in the Vince behavior?
Involved? No. Do I think that he was like
encouraging I don't say involved. Or... I think that he could have been involved in some things maybe in the mid-90s and early 2000s that were inappropriate, because a lot of them were.
Possibly.
Scott Hall was Kevin Nash.
I mean, I've read like Jericho's books. I've read JR's books. I know the kinds of things that were going on just in terms of like drugs and alcohol. So
maybe not Vince's behavior into the extreme that we are hearing with Janelle, but maybe some of the way they treat women, that type of thing.
I would say his involvement is strictly in terms of covering up the behavior and protecting. Sure. In his involvement, if you want to say, was he involved? Yeah, he was involved in so much as he covered it up and he allowed this infrastructure to be perpetuated.
Right. And he
this
could very
toxic, horrible, unsafe environment.
Yeah.
Continued to exist, and he could have done something. And he didn't.
Right. And it does go back to the early 80s. This is you're exactly right. And and that we know that, Triple H was with China. Yeah, of course. And so I thought about China a lot. I have thought about her a lot lately. I read her, like, I love China, and I haven't read it in years, but like her book is on my bookshelf right now. Like, and I read it, and I remember some of the awful things that happened to her even before she got into wrestling. She talks about being assaulted.
You saw the Vice documentary.
Yeah, and she was talking about being assaulted before she was even involved in the wrestling business too. So it's just I've thought about her a lot, and what she's seen and what happened to her. She clearly got she got very heavily involved into drugs, and some things happened to her. And then I will also I don't want to spend let me just say, Kevin Nash, his whole discussion on this has been extremely upsetting. He has said over and over that he's not read the lawsuit, but then he tells you all the reasons why Janelle is lying, and that he's very close to Vince McMahon and to Paul and Stephanie and wishes no harm to come to them. Just awful things. So I unfollowed
Well, then
him.
you're part of the problem too,
fan.
sir.
I was a Kevin Nash fan when I first started watching WCW. I loved NWO and the Outsiders, and he's typically, when he talks about things, he's typically, I don't want to say on the right side of things. I don't want to phrase it that way, but he's typically, a lot of the things that he says are, things that I typically agree with. Not always, but sometimes,
Didn't he stand up? Wasn't he like the only one who stood up for when Scott Steiner or
Oh, Giselle. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wasn't he the only one that said anything about that?
One of the few, I believe. So. I want to say
one
that's
of the
correct.
few. So
yeah,
I don't like. That's worse.
But even, yeah. Oh, well, so then it came out. So if some of you have probably seen, this is, from what I understand, these shirts were already on sale previously because it was related to something. It was something related to Jericho, and they were selling the shirt that said something about NDA, and it was like the NWO lettering, but they're still selling them in light of all of this that's coming out. And then his co-host is out here defending it and just being really nasty. Anybody that came up against them, he's argued with them and told them that Janelle just wants money and all this stuff. And then he would block people. So yeah, and then Mick Foley he talked about it on his podcast, and his statement was rather disappointing. It was kind of like, I hope it's not true because Vince was good to me.
Cop out.
What? I was like, I just need these old veteran wrestlers, just shut your mouth. If you don't have anything to add to this conversation, I don't want to hear it. I don't care that both things can be true. Vince could be very good to you, and he could have made your career. He could have made sure you've got bank and got paid. He can do all of those things and still do these horrible, horrible things to these women. One does not negate the other. I don't understand.
That's exactly right.
So it was very disappointing. Bret Hart actually did release, there was an interview with Bret Hart this week where he talks about the stuff with Vince, and he was saying how, like, even though Vince had screwed him over with obviously the Montreal screw job and done some other terrible things to him, that he still felt Vince was the father figure and he still respected him, and that he had even called him before his cancer surgery in 2016. But then, and he said he kind of always, like, when other things would come out about Vince and women, he would just downplay it for his own, like, he would just like, oh, that's not true. Even in the case of Rita Chatterton, he said that in the interview, he said, I just thought that Vince wouldn't do something like that, because he was like, well, why would you? He's risking everything. Like, that can't be true. Apparently, he also made comments back when this was going on, and said that Rita was not hot enough for Vince rape. It was something he said years ago.
That's
However,
fantastic.
Since this lawsuit has come out, he said he realizes he was wrong and about everything. And he said that it's just really hard to digest this information. And he ran into Rita and he told her he was sorry, and he believed her, and he was sorry he ever doubted her. And he felt great remorse for the things that he said and the things that he did. And he said he is ashamed that he ever stood up for Vince, that he was ever friendly with him. And so I think that's the only, I think that's what I hope to happen. If you previously were a supporter of Vince and things like that, that you will eventually come to if you come to the realization that you can be like, I was wrong. Or you can say, like, Vince helped me and he did these things in my career, but what he did to these women is terrible and it's wrong and I don't condone it. Like, that, you can do that. And so it was really interesting to see those comments from Bret, where and the person who interviewed him said, like, he genuinely sounded remorseful in their interview. Like, it sounded like he meant what he said. Hopefully he did. So yeah, it's just.
I mean, I'm not really sure what to say about current wrestlers that are wrestling in other promotions, and they're sort of like, I mean, you can like plenty of people are like, oh, Bryan Danielson said that he was like, a father to him too, and where's his statement? I'm like, I don't think he needs to say anything in this case. I think that
just
and especially in the case of they have a special case because that's John Laurinitis is like his father-in-law or something, isn't he?
Yes, he is Bryan Danielson's father-in-law because he is the stepfather to Brie and Nikki.
Okay, so
yes, and so he has in the past, as recent as last year, has glowingly spoken about Vince McMahon
I know.
and John Laurinitis. John Cena went to Vince McMahon's birthday dinner last year.
Hell, they were chanting him. I mean, this is the problem. And there were a lot of people online, and this, like, I think, especially if you're someone that's out there defending this, trying to like,
oh no, I'm blocking people on site.
One thing to,
if
like,
anybody
listen,
comes,
I get it. Like,
rationalizing
it is fine.
I block them on site. I'm not. I actually had somebody follow me the other day, and I was just scanning through their stuff, and they were kind of defending it, and I was like, I just blocked them. I was like, I don't even want you as a follower.
Nope. I'm not going on your list of people to come after, and I'm not going on and I'm certainly not going to have you seeing tweets about things because
no. That guy I saw him was responding to people, and I was like, I don't even want you in my mentions. I'm not. I'm not entertaining any of this. There's no defending it to me for any. And
we have no indication at current from anybody inside of that organization, like no assurances whatsoever. Nobody has answered the question, like what steps have you taken to make it a safer workspace? Bruce Pritchard, Kevin Dunn, every single one of these people have skirted that question. They've deflected that question. They've done nothing. They have not done anything to make it safer. So for all we know, there's still crap going on at this very minute. Like,
yeah. Well, SmackDown was in Charlotte on Friday, and I already was not going to go because that just
obviously.
I haven't been to a WWE show in probably 5 years. Yeah, I was not going anyway. But because I had to watch it for work purposes, they bring out Triple H, and he got a giant pop that was so embarrassing. Like I was embarrassed by the reaction he got. Then they were chanting Triple H's name, and I was just like, I'm gonna stab myself. It's just like I can't look. I know not everybody is as online as we are. I know that there are people who just watch the product. They don't get on social media. They don't see this stuff. Like I get that. And I know that there are people who genuinely, they think it's just Vince. They don't realize, and they think, oh, Vince is gone. It's fine. Because even I think some of the major media organizations that are covering it are covering the Vince side of things. So they may not even know that Triple H is possibly implicit in what's been happening, or that he might be corporate officer number one, as people seem to think that he is. Some people don't know. And so I tried to remind myself, I was like, well, not everybody is as online as we are. Not everybody knows all the information that's out there. They're not reading this. But then I was like, there are a good chunk of people there who know. And it goes back to the same with the thing I told you with Ric Flair when AEW signed him. And I told you they would bring him to Flair country. They'd bring him to Charlotte. They'd bring him to Greensboro, and knowing he would get Woo chance. And that's exactly what happened. Collision came here the first Saturday of January, and I was at the show, and they wooed every 5 seconds, 45 minutes before the show started. Ric Flair got an entrance, but the Workhorseman didn't. That first match, and they wooed Ric Flair. There was people in the audience dressed like him. Like I knew that this stuff was going to happen, and it's the same thing with Triple H. And I watched it play out in my home state where I was born and raised, and I wanted to turn off the product, but I couldn't because I had to watch. But I let the people know that I was very irritated. I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. And I mean, I can and I can't. And I was just like, and they were like, no, I understand why you're upset. And then luckily they were like, you want to write about the DIY match? Yes.
Yes,
Let me
please.
have one positive thing to come out of all of this.
Well, this is the problem, I think. And it also, and just as a quick caveat, though, I would say this is that they've been having this on the 6 o'clock or 6:30. Like I'm the lady that watches this at 6:30 ABC News or whatever.
Me too.
You know, and they've been reporting on this. This has been making national
Inside Edition
news.
did. I had Inside Edition. Like I had been watching the ABC News, and it went into Inside Edition, and they covered it. It was like it was right when the news broke, and they were talking about how talent was advised not to talk about it. And in addition, that's what they covered was McMahon did this, and this was right before he announced that he was leaving. That he was quitting, so it was like a few hours before or something like that. And they were like, yeah, and WWE wrestlers have been told not to talk about it.
Well, of course they have. I mean, they can't say anything.
And so they were focusing on the Vince portion of it because it's mainstream, and they obviously don't. A lot of them aren't doing the digging and don't realize that Triple H probably knows things, and Bruce Pritchard and Kevin Dunn, they don't know the names of these people. They just know Vince McMahon and WWE. And so I think that, some of this audience that still reacts to Triple H, if that's where they're like, oh, they think that because Vince is gone, that this is, that the problem is solved. We aren't booking Triple H. I mean, we aren't booking Brock Lesnar. Problem solved. We can all move on. Please do not forget, WWE is named in this lawsuit. It is not just Vince. It is not just John Laurinaitis.
That is something that people need to be reminded of a lot, that they forget.
Keep bringing this up. WWE is they are in this lawsuit.
When they run around saying I'm not, when Bruce Pritchard's running around saying I'm not involved in the lawsuit, yes, you are, because you work as an executive for WWE, which is named in the freaking suit. You dum dum. Yeah. That is, you are involved in the suit. You are a corporate officer.
Yes, exactly. And he said, do y'all think TKO will get rid of its inner circle like Bruce and Triple H? Yes.
I hope so. I mean, I think so, because I think that their pressure, I believe the pressure from sponsors.
Yeah, the sponsors. And I think TKO knows that they fucked up a little bit. They listed Vince as a liability last fall.
Yeah, they knew it when they merged. Their insurance company gave them a risk assessment on him and said that he was a giant risk. And they went ahead and merged anyway.
I think that eventually, especially with how quickly information is coming out, I do want to point out BJ Bethel made a really good, he had a thread the other day because he works in, he covers like other cases outside of wrestling, and so he's very familiar with how this stuff works. This case is gonna take at minimum a year, because they want to make sure they're getting, most cases do take a year, like they want to make sure they're getting things right. The feds are involved. Like, this is gonna be a process. Vince McMahon has a lot of money. He can keep this tied up in the courts till the day he dies, potentially, unless the FBI is like, nope, we're charging him. So this is going to be an ongoing process. So I do feel like at some point Bruce and Triple H will be gone. Bruce probably should have been gone already, especially when Ronda Rousey said, well, he is an avatar for Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon is not gone.
Well, and the reporting that Dave did was that he was communicating with him
through email and text messages
while he was away.
Yes. So he could very well.
And BJ made that is a fantastic thread. I think people should go look at BJ Bethel's Twitter, and we'll retweet it, because that was a great. I loved that he puts out the fact that this is so important. Courts take forever, like moving through the court system. He made the point where he's been following some cases that started 8 years ago. It took, like, even for a simple case, like I had a civil thing that I had to deal with. It took 4 years for them to deal with it. And it was and then in the end, what was the funniest part is that we finally got to arbitration, and the other people's lawyer literally didn't show up. So that was how it was. Like, I won the case because the other person's lawyer didn't show up after we had been through all of this BS. So it's There's
so,
a
and we
lot. This is
mentioned,
an uphill battle. I hope other women come out. That will help. I mean, I hope they're brave. I'm not one of these.
If they feel safe and supported,
right,
then I hope
and
they
if
come
you want
forward.
to come on here, we're happy to have you.
Please.
We would love to platform it and hear from you. This is a safe space. If anybody starts to mess around, we will not allow them in here for you. If you want to come talk to us, that's please. I mean, we're just nobody, but if you feel good about, and that's a space that you want to talk. I mean, Fight Game Media is a really, really supportive community here. I mean, I think even this morning I was saying to Bob, one of the guys that like covers, one of the people that covers Joshi are like one of our top people is a dude. Like, this is a guy that wants like success. And I mean, so it's very frustrating because this is making me, I said it last week. Listen to Keela. She's very eloquent job of talking about the suit. This is our sport. This belongs to us. And these shitheads are wrecking it. And I don't like that. And I don't want to be lumped in with this, because when I say I like pro wrestling, everybody thinks WWE. And there's no way around that in North America. And I don't. And in the
especially
West,
in our age, if they're in our age group or just above or just below, because
and we're adults, so they're going to be even more critical of us. And it's just, it makes me mad. I'm like, but I did, and I've said it, and I've said it over and over, is like, there are alternatives. We do have an alternative. We're not stuck with this one disgusting product. We have alternatives.
Right. But we also understand that treatment of women is good everywhere in pro wrestling. It is, for which we will get to actually in just a minute with Rachel's case.
We need to talk about that too.
But I also wanted to go back to what Eddie said about Triple H. I mentioned it last week. I don't know that he makes it to WrestleMania, especially with The Rock getting Brian Gerwitz involved to do stuff for him. Maybe because WrestleMania is such a big deal, maybe Triple H does stay in place, but that's April 5th. It's February 11th. A lot can happen in the next few weeks. So
Sam, it's only the 11th of February and all of this crap has happened. What is going on?
What are we, 7 weeks into the year? Yes. So I think it's very possible that Triple H does not make it to WrestleMania. Maybe he, like I said, WrestleMania is so huge. Maybe TKO's like, we need him to at least get through Mania season. Then we'll deal with him. I don't know. Nothing at this point was surprising.
That guy has a genetic heart disorder that took him away from that thing. There's no telling what could happen to him if they continue to like.
This is true. This is very stressful.
No, this is not like unstressful. There's no way you don't stress out about this. I don't care who you are.
I hope that it turns
brains
into a
work the
case,
way they work.
I'm hoping, because the FBI is involved and have had access to Vince's home and to his phone records, that means criminal charges.
Actually, do you know why I think that it will be charged in federal court?
Why?
Because they altered budgets to pay these NDA lawsuits, or to pay these NDAs out. So that money was shareholder money. This investigation was essentially started by an SEC and an FTC complaint, which is the Trade Commission and the Securities and Exchange Commission. And ask Bernie Madoff and ask Al Capone and ask anybody who's ever tried to mess with the market or the government and get them getting their piece, and shareholders. And shareholders are not me. They're billionaires. Right. You were doing this dirty, trashy shit with my billionaire shareholder money.
Yeah.
And I will not tolerate, like, look at how that happened. Slim Jim just about pulled out and they went, he's gone. Don't come back. He's gone. Slim Jim, no.
Well, back. even Netflix is like, oh, Vince is gone. It's not a problem. This deal that we have is fine.
Well, that remains to be seen. Okay. We'll see what happens. But actually, Dave made that point, is that it broke after the deal. They would have had, it was just outside of their like out clause, because you have an out clause of any, even if you buy a car, you have like 48 hours or something to bring that car back and get all your money back. And like, just I changed my mind. I don't want this sale, whatever. You have a certain period of time from the time you close the sale on large and small purchases. That's just true. But I think him messing with shareholder money, messing with market money, there's only certain people who are allowed to mess with the market. And if you are not one of those people and you try to mess with the market, you will pay.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that is the aspect that keeps my hopes up that because otherwise I don't think that, unfortunately, the guy is doing this because he's bulletproof and he's proven it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's my great saving grace, is because if he had done this in his private company, I think he'd have got away with it. But I think because that's stock manipulation, essentially. And that's criminal behavior. And they can get him on that. And if he goes to jail, if he goes to jail, he goes to jail. I don't care like where he goes to jail. But I would love.
No, I just want him to. I want him to suffer and go into jail.
He should have to not be able to.
And anybody else who is complicit should face charges too, and they should be gone. And if they were criminally involved, they should be in jail too.
I understand the sort of like mentality. Joking about this, the cleanse by fire. I mean, they almost like sort of, you feel like they need to just like burn the whole thing down and start over. And I don't want a bunch of people that are innocent, like secretaries or whatever, losing their job. But I don't know what to say about this. Like, how could you, if you were someone who stood by and let this happen and didn't leave that company?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, no.
Well, and that's, and it could be far reaching. And, we've had somebody said that a few weeks ago, well, how far do you go? As far as you have to. I mean, it's not my choice to make. That's not my choice. But if as far reaching as it goes, if these people were complicit, then I don't care how long they've been there. I don't care. I mean, sure. And I know this could cut out some people who we consider good people. Maybe this affects somebody like a William Regal or something like that. But I mean, and I'm not saying that he was involved in any case. I'm just saying that he's a good,
no, but he's a high level person
that
in WWE generally for a long time.
Right.
So it's hard. It's hard. That's
people
what
have made
about it.
Yeah, and people have made a comment, Paul Heyman was very close to Brock Lesnar for a very long time. Does that mean, because ideally if Triple H goes, Paul Heyman is somebody who's been in wrestling for a really long time, despite your feel, what you may or may not feel about him and how he does things and some awful things he's done as well, in just a wrestling mindset. Like if Triple H goes, well, who's there? Okay, well, Paul Heyman's been here for a very long time. He was at ECW. TKO would probably look at that and be like, that's somebody that we could help out. But then you have to consider, okay, well, he was close to Brock Lesnar for a really long time. Was he complicit and stuff? What does he know? What did he do?
Nope.
Did he know that this woman was being trafficked to get Brock Lesnar to re-sign? Did Paul know this? So those are questions that have to be asked by the people who are investigating this. And it could be very far reaching, and it could cut out people that generally are well liked. A lot of people really do like Paul Levesque. And he was probably right there up at the, maybe not necessarily participating, but he was covering it, most likely could have been potentially covering it up, or he knew, or, he's right there underneath it. And so it sucks. I mean, this is kind of that we've talked about this. This is the things that Speaking Out tried to show us 5 years ago. And we kept getting told, oh, we'll protect women. We'll make sure this never happens again. And these people are still employed by WWE and AEW and TNA, and they're getting into these, they're getting back into other spaces in pro wrestling. I mean, you see Matt Riddle was signed with MLW and he's doing stuff with New Japan. So it's just, these people don't want to do the work. They want to say they're doing the work, and then they don't want to do the work, which we are seeing now with Rachel Rose and with this reality of wrestling stuff. And I tweeted that, and I tweeted after I read the article, I tweeted that it's protect women until you have to actually do the work. It's all lip service for a lot of people. Granted, there are some people who do try really hard, and I don't, but overall, this feeling is that they don't care to, they don't want to put in the efforts that it takes. I will preface this Rachel Rose story by saying I was tipped off a couple of weeks ago that the story was coming. I didn't know the details. I just knew, and I didn't know who was involved. I knew it involved Booker's school, and I knew there was a stalking incident, but that's all the information I was given. So I've been waiting on the story to come out. Last Sunday, when Booker T tweeted that he was having a medical procedure and was taking time off and would not be at the Vengeance pay-per-view and was going to be gone for a couple weeks, I knew immediately. I was like, he's not having. I mean, perhaps he had a medical procedure he'd been putting off and decided that now was the time to do it.
It's the perfect time.
Timing wise. So I figured that it meant that WWE knew about it and that the story was coming, and the story dropped last night about 6:30 Eastern time. The information in the Fightful case is very long. It's very detailed because there's a lot of information. There were screenshots provided. There are emails. There's witnesses and things like that. Booker T was talked to about it. So I won't get into the full details because I was just scanning the article and I was like, oh, there's so much in here. So I encourage you to read this article, and I have shared it to my page. I actually retweeted it to Powerbombshells last night as well. I'll retweet it again. But so Rachel Rose is somebody who was very big in the Texas independent scene. She was part of Reality of Wrestling. So if you're not familiar, Reality of Wrestling is Booker T's wrestling school in Houston, Texas. Athena came from there. Several other people have come from this school, or have at least spent some time there. And so Rachel is, if you watch Deadlock Pro, you're probably familiar with Rachel. She's wrestled there for a while, on and off. She's also appeared in WWE, and she's been in AEW as like enhancement talent. Yes, Vinkin says Roxanne Perez. Yes, Roxanne is probably the most recent person to have come from the school. So Rachel is no longer with the school, in mostly, well, not, I won't say mostly. So she was stalked by a fellow trainee at the school. She's in a long-term relationship with someone. This person became aware of that, said it's something like he couldn't trust himself alone with her, or just like, then he was showing up at places that she knew at venues and shows that he knew she'd be at. There's a bar that they all, like, after shows, they would all go to kind of celebrate together. It was a tradition. He was showing up at these places. And it was, he was stalking her. And was that she made the police aware, but the police in Texas said because she was never in a relationship with him, there's nothing they could do.
Which is a load of crap.
It is a load of crap. I was like, how many people are stalked by people they don't know? A lot of them.
Sonya Deville was stalked by someone she didn't know.
Right. Exactly.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives in Texas who used to work for police dispatch, and he was like, yeah, that's pretty on brand for Texan police departments. And so Rachel, she came to Fightful to talk about what happened. There are other witnesses who talked to Fightful about it as well. And so one of the incidents where things really escalated is that they were at a bar, and this guy, he's named in the article, so I will say his name here. His name is Sean Reed. As far as I know, he was just a student for a very long time, a trainee. He's not appeared on anything big, like where people would know him or anything like that. But he showed up at a bar, first he showed up at a Reality of Wrestling show, where she was at. People kicked him. She had alerted, because the police basically were like, you need to tell management or the venue if he shows up and have him removed. That's your course of action. We're not doing anything. Then you can call it. She did have an officer, I believe, that she was in touch with, and she would tell, like, hey, he's here, just to document the fact that he showed up. And so he was kicked out, but then Booker T was in the parking lot and apparently didn't know exactly what was going on. And Booker T let him go back in, because Sean told him he had a gun. And he was trying to defuse the situation by allowing him into the venue where this woman was.
And he didn't know about any of this because the people that she told, who said they were going to tell Booker, never told him.
Right.
And she was told that they had a trespass against him from the venue, that he wasn't allowed in the venue, which they never filed.
Right. Yes, and there was thing where he
over and over they lied to this girl, like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he said, I'm trying to find exactly where to start reading because, like I said, there's a bunch of information in this article. And it says that, and there was a situation where they were at the bar where he threw a glass of beer at someone. He swung at Rachel. And so this guy clearly was a violent person. And I cannot stress enough, this man had a gun. He was so upset that he brought this gun to a venue.
And he threatened to shoot the place up at one point.
Yeah, and
separately.
I'm not gonna read his response because he went on to Fightful's Facebook to trash her.
Oh.
And to say, he
no
said,
way are we elevating that on our show.
He did. The one part of this I will talk about. He admitted that he brought a gun. He says openly and publicly he brought that gun, but he says he knew he would not use it. Are you sure about that? You just said you were so angry and seeing red that you brought a gun to this venue. And you're telling me
they had other threats from him where he threatened to shoot the place up. He threatened to do it before.
So Hyann, who is also involved in that wrestling, she's no longer with Reality of Wrestling either. But she put out a statement and she was like, we could have died. Like, I need you to understand that. Like, here's her statement here. She said, this is why things like this need to be taken seriously. Since the posting of this article, Sean Reed commented on Fightful's Facebook saying this, and then she screenshot. So that's how I read it, because she screenshot what he said. She said, in his comment, he says he brought a gun into the building that night. I was in the building that night. We could have died.
Right.
And
but no big deal, because apparently Booker T is taking the page out of his Wrestling Daddy's book and treating women the same way as
right. So when Booker T became aware of the situation, here's where it gets even worse.
The boss of the company.
Yes. So Booker T insisted that, well, first of all, when they made contact with Booker T, he insisted the timing of the story was emerging due to a meeting where Reality of Wrestling said that they will not allow wrestlers if you wrestle for Reality of Wrestling, you can wrestle for no other company in Houston. Please keep in mind that Houston is a very large city, and he's telling them that they can't wrestle anywhere else in Houston if they wrestle for him. So I believe that there's some stuff that may be coming out about that as well, because there's been some
and I think that he was trying to insinuate that the reason that she was making all of these accusations was
he tried to say that's
not because of all of these other incidents that have been. I mean, there's witnesses to this stuff. There is. I mean, she had. What I think is so crazy is she had that. So I read the article when you sent it to me, and she had a police officer that she was in regular contact with, basically like a case officer, basically, who she was like, do this, and he's like, yeah, stay away from him. Oh, tell him not to do that. Oh, whatever. Like, so the guy was handling the case, but he was doing the worst job ever.
He was doing the very bare minimum.
Very bare minimum. He has to be like this. It has to be like that. I'm like, I feel like it's unfortunate because people don't have the ability or access to get the right legal help, and that's just,
Right. And that's a problem.
I mean, she would have probably been, they would have all been better off if they could have, but they can't. They can't afford health insurance. Why? How can they afford lawyers?
They're especially in the independent wrestling scene.
You're an independent wrestler.
So this article goes on. They do have some quotes from Rachel in here, and she said that because of the bar situation where the police had to be involved in all this stuff, which Booker called a non-story, and he wondered why it took a year for it to come out. But that's because she's been in therapy since this happened, and that she finally felt safe enough to tell her story publicly. So Booker T is also victim shaming. That she says Booker screamed and cursed at me when he arrived on the scene while I was talking to police at the December incident. Said that this was my fault and I was the reason people got hurt and arrested, and he fired her. So please let that sink in. He fired a stalking victim because she was bringing bad press to the school, getting the police involved at his school. So I just want you to just remember that.
For something that they could have very well prevented entirely.
Yeah, and so there's like
if they had taken any step at all to protect the people involved in this.
Yeah. So here's the state. It took me a minute to find it. So Rachel Rose also said she spoke with Fightful, and she said, to speak on the personal side of things, my safety has not been secure for years due to Sean Reed and the lack of support I received from the people in charge of Reality of Wrestling, which allowed Sean's actions to escalate the way that they did unchecked. The issue being allowed to fester for so long has resulted in many hours of speaking in person to and on the phone with police officers, district attorneys, and lawyers because of the situation. I've spent and continue to spend a great deal of time in therapy sessions to process trauma related to this incident in hopes of one day fully overcoming the effects of it. That itself comes with a stigma, but it's all part of the healing process, which I am learning to navigate and fully embrace.
Good on her.
Yeah, and so Fightful was able to obtain some of the incident reports where Reed appeared at the Premier Arena. So the Premier Arena is another arena that they use, that Reality of Wrestling uses, where they just sent him off when he became problematic there. They just dumped him off on somebody else. And so Rose said, overall, I hope that what comes out of this is Booker, along with the people placed in charge at the school, will implement procedures and protections to ensure threats are taken seriously in the future should they continue to not make student safety their priority. I hope that at the very least, any women who train there or are looking for a place to train see this and are able to make an educated decision before they put their safety into the hands of Reality Wrestling. She speaks of her time at Row by saying, I'm thankful for the start that Reality of Wrestling gave me, especially the original trainers there. They taught me so much, but more importantly, they protected me and created a culture that encouraged everyone to look out for each other. Despite these positive feelings about how things used to be, it doesn't absolve the actions taken by Booker T and Kevin Bernhardt. Kevin Bernhardt is a trainer at the school who he and Booker together
involved in this. He is pretty much responsible for the non-action. He was the person. He was the go-to person. So this was his job, and he didn't do it.
Yes. But she said that the actions taken by Booker T and Kevin Bernhardt that are geared towards protecting their reputation and downplaying the events that led up to and followed the events of that night. And then this just has the report in there, and you can see how unhelpful the police are in this report. And then several people have spoken up about JJ Blake has talked about like what happened that night, and he has I'm trying to think if there's anything pertinent to read, but basically he was confirming her story, has talked about how Reality of Wrestling has tried to downplay this. They just don't want to deal with it, basically. And so one thing that he said is, this article has been deemed a hit job. This story has been internally referred to as misinformation. This reporting of the situation has been said to be a retaliation because people are bitter about the success of Reality of Wrestling. Those affected by this issue have seen massive success in every sense of the word, which can be confirmed by a quick search on social media. Those pointed as outside agitators and antagonizers simply don't appreciate having their safety compromised, irregardless to how far away from their location they went, whether it was this on-site at Reality of Wrestling or 30 miles away at a location unbeknownst until revealed by management, making it everyone's problem. These actions crossed the line and endangered people outside of their walls. And so he said he ends the statement by saying, there is no misinformation, just truth that doesn't serve your agenda. This isn't the first time something has been mishandled or covered up, which that definitely got my attention, and I wonder if that's going to come out. It's just the first time that the public knows about it. Do better. That's it. Easy solution. Don't lie. Don't hide. Don't use people as human shields or as cannon fodder. To cover your hasty retreat from accountability. Stop dangling carrots and using lies to lure people in. Stop revising history and misrepresenting truth. Artificially inflate your stock. Handle your own misinformation first. Get rid of problems when they occur and have the balls to stand up for what's right instead of only serving the select few that you assign value to. Protect everyone. If you can't do that, step aside and stop vilifying people that do. So, yeah. And I was trying to say, there's been a few other statements in support, and then I did see Rachel released a statement about an hour before our show started. She just said, first and most importantly, I genuinely can't put into words how overwhelming the love and support I've gotten in the last 24 hours alone is, not to mention the support from the people in my life since the situation started years ago. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. She also said that she's not going to speak on her stalker's comments about herself, but she just wants to. The only thing that deserved any attention is that he admitted to bring a gun with him that night. It's horrifying and genuinely makes me sick to my stomach reading that. I also want to say the fact that me finally being in a comfortable space to talk about what I went through is being deflected and boiled down to wrestling politics by the same people who put my life, and not to mention the lives of everyone at the venue, in danger multiple times is disgusting. This is not about wrestling. This is not about promotions. This is not about picking sides. This is about making sure women are safe. This is about believing victims when they come to you and tell you what is happening. This is about people's lives being at risk. I stand by what I said. What I want to come out of this is the protections and procedures put in place at not only Reality of Wrestling, but any and all schools and promotions to make sure their students, staff, and fans who attend their shows are not put in danger.
I think that says it all.
I think so too. Yes. So Hassan said that's insane. I hope Rachel is so far away from that guy. Me too. Vinkin says, so why do we not check people entering the venue? Because this is Texas and it's an open carry state and they can take guns wherever they want.
They don't care.
Because America, but specifically
Texas.
Mean,
it's a very, it's even here in Michigan, you see people carrying. I mean, it's not as Texas. It's not on Texas.
Yeah, there's several
level,
states where North Carolina is not an open carry, but you have to have but you can have a concealed weapon permit in North Carolina. But
you can have both here. It's open carry and you can get your CPL. So
yeah, we are not currently an open carry state, but, depending on how that changes.
That part of the world is its own thing, and it likes to be its own thing, and that's fine. But this is not okay. Yeah. And it's going on everywhere. This is not exclusive to Texas. The problem about this is that, like, this culture everywhere.
Yeah. Yes, Vinkin, in certain states in some cases you do have to have a concealed carry permit, which allows you to carry a gun, but it has to be concealed. But then there are certain states that is an open carry, which means you can just openly carry your gun around. Like you have
to, the way it works is it has to be visible to everybody. So you have to wear it on your hip. You have to wear it. It has to be in a holster. There's all these rules. But yes, in America, when you're walking around in the Costco or even out in Washington, we had a neighbor. I just remembered this. I totally forgotten. We had a neighbor lived across the street from us who used to mow his lawn, and he used to carry his gun while he was mowing his lawn. We were in like a neighborhood next to a school in this tiny little like thing. Like everybody knew everybody. There was a planned community. Like this dude would walk around. He would just mow his lawn. And these lawns were like the size of like an office. I mean, not huge. But he had to open carry. He had to make sure everybody knew not to mess with him while he was mowing his lawn.
This is not the time to mess with
America.
Very serious business. But yeah, so so we hope that the women involved are safe. We hope that Booker T takes some accountability here and implements the changes, and I hope that
he does not appear to be taking any accountability.
No, he's denying it even happened. So, and he says he fired her for other reasons, which is apparently not, which I don't buy.
I mean, people saw it happen, right? So, like, hello.
That's the thing. Yeah, there's people who saw it happen. There's witnesses. There's apparently text messages and emails and
I'm just
things
sorry
like that.
Sorry that she had to go.
I am too. And that people at that venue are put in danger by this person because this is how these things escalate. They tell you, why won't the women go to the police? Well,
look what happens.
She went to the police and look what they did. They didn't do a damn thing. And he came to a venue with a gun and could have killed her and countless other innocent people. So sometimes that is why people don't go to the police, because the police either sometimes don't believe them, or the laws in this country are terrible when it comes to protecting survivors, and they don't. I mean, because you can get a restraining order, but it puts your address, and so they know where you live. They can come harm you. A piece of paper is not going to stop these situations, and we've seen it happen. And there needs to be stronger. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this. There needs to be stronger laws. There need to be, easier for survivors to get to safety, to get protection. And then there goes to the wrestling schools that need to, and venues and things like this. It's a nationwide thing. I mean, because you can go on to that level, but then at the very least in the wrestling community, there needs to be safety procedures. There needs to be protocols. There needs to be protection for your talent. And if you have things like this happen, there's gotta be, stuff has got to be, that there's so many steps, but and we saw it again. We saw the stuff during Speaking Out. They said, oh, well, we'll put these, some promotions did put in these things. They're like, okay, if this happens, then this is what you do. If you are being, harassed or assaulted or things like this is what you need to do. So there are some places, but most of them just said, okay, well, we'll look at our procedures. And then they didn't follow through with them because they don't want to do the work. And so unfortunately, these things are going to keep, these types of things, maybe not to this extent, maybe even worse than this, are going to keep happening until these protections are put into place. And Venkin says, yeah, the thing is more of an American problem. It is. And so as long as
it's a very, very American problem. There's
it is. And so there's
there's an Onion article that gets re-released quite often. It's almost become a meme at this point that says, we couldn't have prevented this as only country in the world who has this happening all the time. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but
no, I know.
They wrote
the
article.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
They wrote the article years ago, but they just basically essentially they don't even need to alter it. They just repost it every time we have an incident because
it happens so often. And
it's just become. I mean, again, we just had. This week, the mother of the shooter at the high school near me that was, she was convicted of being responsible in some way. I mean, it's a lot of this stuff, the women thing and the gun thing and the violence thing, they are all it's so ingrained in our infrastructure. That's what needs to be broken. That is what needs to be rejected. That the idea is that the cycle of this BS needs to be broken. And that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
And I think people are trying, but this feels like wrestling felt really great for a long time. And we were like, okay, we're kind of past this stuff. And then this stuff comes out and you go, we're not as far past it as all that yet. And it still exists. And these people are still alive and they are still, I think a lot of us want wrestling to be better. And it felt like it was better. And then this comes out and it feels like a giant step backwards. It feels like, it's the year that all those terrible, it's like the late 90s or the early 2000s again, when just five wrestlers have incidents in a row, and it hurts and it's gross and it makes you mad because there's so much good in wrestling and there's so much there's so many healthy things that come out of wrestling.
Yeah, and it just goes back to both things can be true. Wrestling could be thriving and doing incredible things, and there can be all these wrestlers and promotions and matches that are happening, and they're all wonderful and great, and we should praise them and talk about them because those are good things to talk about. But we also need to talk about the stuff that is happening.
We need to name this shit. It has to be called out.
This, as you can tell, is not something the Powerbombshells will look away from. I can't.
It's just
I was talking to somebody.
Yeah, just needs to end. Enough is enough already.
Yeah. I mean, Speaking Out changed everything for me. It really, because I was already writing and things like that, and I can't not talk about it. I will never not be able to unknow the things that I know. There's a lot more that I don't know about, and some information's coming out, and I'm like, what is this? And you're finding out all kinds of terrible things, and so these things coexist together, unfortunately, and you still have to do something about it. And so we will do both. We will enjoy we will talk about the wrestling we enjoy, because that's what this show is, but we will also talk about,
call it out when it's being
the other stuff too, because if you don't talk about it, then nothing changes. And I'm not saying that we have a big enough platform to change things, but I'm saying that we will talk about it, and we will add our voices to those who are already talking about it, because when more of us are talking about it, then the hope is more things can change. And even in small ways where it's hopefully helping a promotion make sure that they are ensuring the safety of their wrestlers, and the safety doesn't go just beyond what they're doing in the ring and, you know, making sure that they're safe in the matches that they put on, but that they are safe coming to the venue, that they are safe training, that they are safe, that there is not somebody who is going to bring a gun to the venue. And if you know about this person, even if it's not to that extent where a weapon is involved, that if you know something is happening, then you put a stop to it immediately, because that's what you can do on your level.
Well, that's what being the boss of something is all about. Like, if you're in charge of something, you need to manage it.
If your name is associated with that school, like everybody knows, reality of wrestling is Booker T's, then you should probably, instead of firing the person being stalked, you should probably do something about it. If that's you want people to come to your school, if you want the next Roxanne Perez and the next Athena, you should probably let it know that you will protect them and you will make it a safe space for them. I don't know why that's so hard.
Dude.
Yeah, so I guess that's our crap sandwich portion.
That was the shit part. So now we're gonna get to the
this stuff is not like great, but it's not near.
Well, I think it's just some of it's just interesting. It's stuff that happened this week in wrestling that was weird. Both Scott D'Amore and Rossy Ogawa. So Scott D'Amore from TNA was just like fired from TNA. Like,
yep. Right after, like, 2 days after Rossy Ogawa. Yeah. So the news about Rossy Ogawa came out. What was it? Was that late Sunday or early? Sometime on Monday, it came out that he was, because they had Stardom had a show, and oh no, it was Sunday because it was during.
Yes,
Vengeance,
it was Sunday because they fired him after they ended his. What it was is that they had agreed that Rossy was going to stay through February 13th or 18th, I believe. February 18th. So next weekend show. There's like one more show coming up. Yeah. And he was going to stay through there. But they had all the way back in December of last year had agreed that he was leaving. He had made it known to them that he was leaving. It was out there. There was some talk of him saying, like, I think like Kyrie going back to WWE had to do with the fact that she knew that Rossy was not going to be coming back to Stardom. And so she didn't want to. And he. So anyway, but instead of all of that, they decided after the show that they were just going to end his contract and terminate him on the spot right there. And
and another reason that's also interesting timing is because NXT Vengeance was on, and a promo had aired, and people thought it was in reference to Julia. So then, like, within. I want to say, like, really, because I wasn't watching, but I saw people talking about it. People were talking about it in Slack, and then, like, really close together, the Rossy information came out, and people were like, "Wait, is that Julia?" Then there were rumors that Rossy was going to WWE to kind of help Julia and to kind of maybe any other talent that wanted to come through. So that rumor came out. Apparently, is not true because Rossy is starting his own promotion, and from Stardom's side of things, and I believe he was trying to poach talent for his new promotion, and they told him to cut it out. But then continue. This is what Stardom was saying. Because Stardom's whether it translated correctly or not, the English thing that came out said he was poaching talent, and that he was told to knock it off, and that he continued to do it, so they fired him. Was what the statement came out. Then there's been some discrepancies on what actually happened, and the way that was worded was not necessarily correct. But we do know for sure Rossy is starting his own promotion.
But they've known that since December. He made it clear when he was leaving that he was going to go start.
Apparently unhappy with the way Stardom was doing things, and it wasn't his vision anymore, and he was fed up with it. And so he's starting his own promotion. And then Julia has reported, I guess, I don't know if this is confirmed. This may just be the theory is, or at least the talks of what I've seen is Julia is delaying going to WWE so that she can go to Rossy's new promotion and help him get it off the ground, because she gave him her word that that's what she would do. And she's very close to Rossy. Quite a few women in Stardom are very close to him and want to go to his promotion. They want to leave Stardom. Another issue that Stardom is having is there's a lot more shows that they are doing, and so injuries are a lot more prevalent. They lost a ton of wrestlers last year due to injury, and a lot of big names too. And I think that was part of it. And
Rossy believed that he was going to be in charge of the he was going to continue to be in charge of the promotion when Bushiroad bought them. He was hoping that the infusion of cash would help them do more things.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was that some other person was like overriding his decisions and making weird booking decisions, and even the wrestlers weren't happy with some of the booking. But so when all of these things, so when he realized like the writing was on the wall and he knew his contract was up in February anyway.
Yeah.
So he said, "I'm done. Like this is not what I intended. This was not what was supposed to happen. And I was supposed to be the guy doing the booking still." And I think a lot of the wrestlers believe that too. And there is a lot of loyalty to him.
Yeah.
Scott, and I encourage all of you to go listen to the 5-Star Doshi show.
Yes.
Listen to Scotty Wrestling talk about this. He knows.
Even go to speaking of strong style from last Thursday, Jeremy and Steven had him on to talk about it, and that's where I listened to some of the information, because I don't watch Stardom. It's just I don't have the time.
And I just read the Observer
so I know
week.
I know a very small amount. We actually had thought about trying to get him on, but I knew he was going to be busy, and then I was dealing with some in real life things, and I wasn't sure. I was like, if for some reason I can't make it on the show, like there were some other outs, so it just ended up not happening where we had somebody to come on to talk about who knows more about Stardom. So yes, I agree with Mel. I encourage you to go listen to both of those shows, because
I haven't listened to it yet, but Fumi and Jim last night.
Yes, I did. Yes, saw something.
They
about
also
that
did
too.
one, and that I'm sure will have a lot of good information. Jim was saying on his aftertime yesterday that Fumi wanted to wait until he had all the things together to have a conversation about it, because he was trying to get information together.
Venkin, I saw something about that too, that Mayu Iwatani wants to leave Stardom, but she can't.
She's contracted. They also said, like Dave said, you would probably be able to tell. They have another show this weekend. That's the one he was supposed to be done with. You'll probably be able to tell who's staying and who the company thinks they're going to keep from who gets the title, because there's a bunch of titles.
There was something. I saw something on Friday that said that Stardom talent who wishes to leave had to let them know by Friday so that they could start making plans without them. Yeah. So,
and they have a show Saturday or Sunday, I believe, that will have that has a bunch of belts.
Real different. Eddie asked, "Why does TK hate Rossy?" I heard that it's actually because TK posted some memes afterwards. I've heard that it's not, that they actually don't think that it's him. It's not Rossy. It's whoever is potentially, I guess, who was making these booking decisions.
The person who was making the bad booking decisions. It was the same
not
person
necessarily
who was making bad booking
Rossy
decisions for New Japan. So
yes. So apparently it's related to that.
It sounds like
from one account that I saw. I don't know how accurate that is. That's something that I saw, that it's actually not directed necessarily at Rossy. There's rumors that that Stardom wanted Chris Statlander, and that AEW didn't tell them, and he ignored the request, I guess. And then obviously there was, Tony had wanted certain wrestlers, but he knew that he couldn't get them because Forbidden Door was the same day as a big Stardom pay-per-view. So it sounds like Tony didn't even ask, but then some people are making it look like he did. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff out there. Who knows what's actually
I would
true,
wait until the dust settles.
But I feel like that it may not necessarily be directed towards Rossy, but instead the person who was overriding Rossy to make these decisions.
Person who essentially is the reason that Rossy is leaving.
Yeah.
Same person.
So, yeah. And then so with the Scott D'Amore situation, so that came out on Wednesday because it was the day before Impact aired, or I'm sorry, TNA aired. Yeah, so this was really interesting. The information that's out there is that Anthem basically wants to go a different direction. They don't like Scott D'Amore wrestling, I guess. It's very weird. The timing, they're several weeks into a rebrand that's gotten TNA the most publicity they've had in probably 5 years. It's just, so
that Hard to Kill pay-per-view destroyed it.
The Hard to, yeah, and it was the guy.
It was one of their most successful pay-per-views they've had in years.
The new president was at both shows and said they were the best, some of the best shows they'd ever seen. So you're going to fire him for what? And you've alienated like your entire locker room. They are all pissed off. And
they were immediately like tweeting pictures of them with him, like he's the best.
Yeah,
if he's gone, I'm gone.
I
feel like some people must have had an inkling, like maybe Trinity left.
He did. Scott did. Well, several of them did, because it has come out that in the weeks leading up to this, people within Anthem were asking wrestlers how things are run, how they do things. And so they kind of had an idea that something was up because they were asking a lot of weird questions. Then it comes out that also Scott D'Amore went to Anthem and told them that he wanted to buy TNA outright from them because he had a large banking institution that would back him, and he was like, let me have this. And they turned him down, and they fired him. And so it wasn't,
they had a replacement what's being set reported up already.
From what's being reported, it wasn't a complete surprise to Scott. He kind of already knew what they were doing, so he made the offer to buy, and then he was fired like a week to 10 days later. When I first read it, of course, my initial reaction was something underlying was going on. Not necessarily with Scott himself, but perhaps something else in the office, because back in 2019, there was a sexual harassment lawsuit against an executive in the company. There has been an NDA signed. The information, and from what I believe, Anthem put out a statement and kind of outed the person who came forward. And so there is information out there on who these two people are. I have read it numerous times over the last couple of years, which wrestler it was and which executive it was. So I thought it may be related to that. I was like, well, maybe they found some other NDAs about some situations. They saw the Vince stuff and were like, nah, we're not going to attempt to be the same thing. So far, nothing like that.
Into this.
Yeah, nothing like that has come out. I don't know. It could be as simple as they just
want to go a different direction.
Stop running. However, just cutting someone off several weeks into this new TNA thing, somebody who is clearly very passionate about the company, who has, much like Rossy Ogawa, has a locker room who will do anything for them, will probably want to, like Moose has flat out said, if he said last year when he was like,
if Scott D'Amore's not here, I'm not here.
Yeah, and that's what he said that when he re-signed his contract last year. Jordan Grace has said something kind of similar. We know Motor City is extremely close to him. They trained at Scott's school. Those two are very, very close with Scott.
Wow.
Josh Alexander, very close.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Josh has been very
I saw him
outspoken. The day before the firing, Frankie Kazarian tweeted something about how Scott has basically made TNA to what it is. And so when I'm reading these, I'm like, God, I hope nothing really bad comes out about Scott D'Amore, because these wrestlers are tweeting their support. And I was like, I'm not liking any of them because I don't know. Maybe because I'm paranoid from the Vince stuff, but this business is shady. I mean, there's no denying
really bad right now. So it's hard not to think that, though. Unfortunately, it's hard for you to not jump to that conclusion, and that's the saddest part. That's what I don't like.
there have been other people who within wrestling have said that he's not the greatest guy. MLJ, who does the voices, he's the commentary for GCW, kind of made some references too. So I mean, of course you're going to have that in wrestling where some people love you and some people hate you, and maybe there's some things we don't know about. And so I'm still very cautious with everything. I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe it is just as simple as they didn't like Scott and he tried to buy the company and they just got rid of him so they don't have to deal with him anymore. Maybe that's all it is. But it's just the timing is really, really weird. It's very suspicious to me. Maybe I'm just being suspicious anyway, but I hate that for them because TNA has been in a good place. Impact has been in a good place for the last few years. I mean, and Mike made some good points on the Mike and JD show the other day that, they do okay. Like they're not on a big channel. They're never going to bring in, as long as they're on Access, they're never going to bring in 1 million viewers. But this Hard to Kill was the biggest pay-per-view they've sold since Kenny Omega was on the pay-per-view. And then they made this announcement and they're like, we're going to have this big venue in April. And then they announced it and it's in Vegas again. I'm like, so you're doing the same thing that Scott D'Amore did, but you fired him like this. And the timing also sucks because Mustafa Ali will be in the company in 2 weeks. He has a match on the 23rd with Chris Sabin at the pay-per-view. And he has put out his schedule. He will be at TNA tapings for like the next 3 months. Nick Nemeth just signed. Danny Luna signed. They brought in, people have re-signed recently. They brought in some new wrestlers that have signed, and then you just get rid of Scott D'Amore right after. I was like, no wonder your locker room is pissed. I don't know what's going to happen. TNA is already has its issues as it is, and I hate that for them. And
it's too bad.
Knock on wood. Hopefully there's nothing more coming out, but it sucks for Scott D'Amore. And somebody asked me, like, because they talked to the people were like, immediately the information came out and they're like, oh, Scott should go work for ROH. And I'm like, let's find out what happened first.
Let's see why. Like, let's give this a minute to
find out. Let's cool your jets a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we let this gestate a little because
let us
what's
make
going
sure
on
there's
in the
nothing
larger.
else. And I'm not trying to accuse. I don't accuse Scott of anything or anything like that.
But with everything that's going on right now, I think
be careful with what you're you're wishing for, please. But then I was talking to somebody else, and he said, "Do you think that Scott would try to start his own promotion since he couldn't buy TNA?" And that could be something that's possible, and sounds like a lot of TNA talent, if they could leave their contracts, would probably go. So maybe we have a Rossy Ogawa situation with Scott D'Amore. Maybe Scott D'Amore goes and starts his own promotion. I don't know.
It's hard without TV.
Yeah, and Mike Gilbert, when the news came out, Mike Gilbert said, "Is Rossy Ogawa coming to TNA?" Did he? I was like, maybe they're swapping, but yeah.
That would be so weird because all of that Stardom talent would like pile in then. You know what I mean? So it'd be like the weirdest. It'd be almost a women's promotion at that point.
Yeah. I think this is going to bite Anthem on the backside.
It should if they're that dumb. It's cheap it's pretty cheap to produce wrestling.
Okay, so this is Scott had his own promotion in Canada Border City Wrestling. And I didn't know because BJ was on when he was on the Mike and JD show and said that Scott D'Amore is independently wealthy, like his family is involved in real estate or something like that.
Excellent. Well, good for him. So maybe he can start his own promotion.
This does kind of sound like this was a passion project for him because you can clearly see how much that man loves TNA. Like if you watch that announcement of when they were bringing back TNA and how emotional he got, you can tell that this company means so much to him. And even Josh Alexander, he posted that 2-minute clip of when TNA is back and he's in the ring and it's Josh and it's Motor City and and I think Eric Young and like all these people were in the ring with him, and just it's sad to see. And Venkin says, and TNA lost Deanna to AEW, and Jordan Jordan recently re-signed though. I don't know when her deal is up or how. That's why she came back. She had taken some time off. She re-signed and she won the title back from Trinity. So I think she's there for a little bit. Like I don't know that this was like a 5-year deal, but I'm thinking like maybe a 2-year. I don't know. I never did. I don't know that they ever reported the length of the contract. I could be wrong. That information may be out there, but I could see Jordan eventually going to WWE because of the way they reacted to her, because they clearly know who she is, and she's got Trinity's over there. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's some interesting times for TNA, and I don't know what the hell they're gonna do. And I hope this doesn't scare off Mustafa. and I will go, and I assume that Mustafa is winning the X Division title. I think when I saw that he was looking at the title, I was like, oh, that's why Chris Sabin retained at Hard to Kill. It's because Mustafa's gonna take it from him. So I think that's what's happening. Hassan said Gail Kim does tremendous work in the creative for TNA. If they change the creative team, I want her in AEW. I heard that I believe for now, from what Mike and JD are saying, that Gail Kim and Tommy Dreamer are running creative. I don't know if that will change with this stuff happening, but that is currently what is happening. I don't know how long that will stay that way. But yeah, and so Mike pointed out like they need to stop booking. Like they shouldn't have signed like Dirty Dango and Big Con and these people who don't do anything. And so he was like, I told you, Scott, that was gonna ruin the company. It's like, and now now they fired you. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens to TNA. I hope they've been, I watch it regularly. And there's some good stuff over there. I mean, there is some stuff that's not great. I will fast forward through it, but there is some really good stuff there. There's a lot of talent there. And so I hope that they can figure it out and it doesn't screw them over too badly without Scott there. But somebody pointed out, though, that they're already struggling because they waited till 11:59 to tweet out like the anniversary. It was like the anniversary of some match with AJ Styles and Kurt Angle, I think. And TNA social media had been on top of it. Like they immediately something would happen in another company and they've already got your video out. But then this tweet comes out at 11:59 p.m. before the anniversary almost changes, and it's not that day anymore. So
I don't know either. Well.
So it'll be interesting to see how both Rossy Ogawa and Scott D'Amore, what they do next and what happens to TNA and what happens to STARDOM. Those are all February 11th, and these stories that we're already to keep an eye
I can't
on.
believe how much it feels like it should be like after Mania, and we're like weeks from Mania.
We're like we're
not even
like
in March yet. It's
we're
not
like
even
58
March.
days away. Yeah,
it's like we're insane. Not even, you know what? We're not even halfway through February.
We're not even we're still in the first quarter of this year.
It's crazy. What's happening? All right. Let's finish up with the good stuff. More good stuff. The best stuff. The big announcements. Tony Khan's major announcements. I can't talk anymore. I'm still flabbergasted. Okay, so I have to say this because I'm not the only one who thought this. TK making moves, it's true.
Yes.
But when I heard big business in Boston, I knew that it would probably be Mercedes. But I also had a thought. I was like, Mercedes, and I even said this in one of our chats, was Mercedes is money, but Okada makes it rain, and that's big business too. And then that news that we talked about at the beginning, and I was like,
Tony's comment kind of made it sound like more than one person.
Because they're both big business because money and Rainmaker. And
you could do that. And that
was where my brain went immediately.
I think, but before we but we'll back it up for a second. So Wednesday morning, TD Garden spoiled it.
Oh yeah, they totally did.
They tweeted out pre-sale AEW is coming back to Boston on March 13th. Pre-sale tickets go on sale on Friday. Then they created and somebody was like, they created a Facebook event for it too.
I saw it on Twitter. And
I
then
saw on
Andrew
Twitter,
Zarian, who's been basically reporting this for weeks anyway, he tweeted
Yeah.
it and was like, well, cat's out of the bag. Like,
yeah,
it's just hilarious because he was like,
within like an hour, it was taken down off the website.
too late,
was
man. The
gone,
damage was
everything.
done.
So somebody, TK probably called somebody and yelled, and some intern probably got in big trouble because it ruined his announcement like 8 hours before. Like it was like 10 a.m. And so they ruined that. So we were joking and we were like, just have Mercedes record a video. Like she doesn't even have to be on the show. Just record a video and say AEW's coming back to Boston. And like just leave it, like have her do something like that. And so of course the announcement was of the show. It's strongly hinted it's Mercedes. Like if you look at the graphic, it says Boston with two S's, money
all
symbol
over again.
Right, which I like. So some people were like, why not just announce Mercedes? You'll get an instant sellout.
Well, that you get as many people as possible in her hometown when she debuts.
This is the better way. Like they even, so at like a little after 10 o'clock on Wednesday night, I got an email that, well, I didn't see it till like a half an hour later, but they sent out an email and they sent out a press release about this show. They didn't even do that when CM Punk when they announced the first dance, because they did, clearly it was the worst kept secret. You had Darby allude to it. Yeah. And so they didn't even bother putting out a press release until after he had signed and he came out. We had all seen him, and then they did the I'm back thing that Michael Jordan did. And so that's how they handled it. But they didn't even, when the first dance was announced, they didn't send out a press release, but they did for this show. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I like them not, I like this being the biggest secret, the worst kept secret. I mean, it was kind of, and I had forgotten about it. They did it with Jeff Hardy too. Like it was obvious that Jeff Hardy was coming in.
Yeah.
And they just they didn't announce it, but they weren't hiding it either. And so I was like, I kind of like that they're doing the wrestlers, some of the big wrestlers, they're just let people sell. Because I saw last night that I believe like 5,000 tickets had sold. I think there's only like 1,200 or maybe 1,600 available as of right now. I don't know if they'll open up more seats, because that's kind of what they've been doing. They did that with Revolution. They keep adding tickets. I don't know how big. By the time Revolution gets here, I don't know how big the stage is going to be. Because they keep adding seats to this show. So I don't know what. And then we even see with New Japan in Chicago, like they released like 4,000 tickets and sold it out quick. Then they released some more, sold those out. And so they keep doing the same thing. So I assume more tickets are going to be, added in. But because I kind of wondered when he made the announcement, I was like, okay, are they doing Okada and Mercedes at the same time? But I almost would rather them not. Because one of my editors made this point too, let Mercedes sell out that venue on her own. Let Mercedes show that she is the draw. She doesn't need Okada to sell out a venue. She doesn't need Will Ospreay to sell out a venue. Let Mercedes be the one to sell out this venue. I mean, she practically did with Battle in the Valley when they announced her for that show last year. She pretty much sold it out on her own. And so I kind of would prefer for them not to. And also I don't want them to take away from Mercedes. I just want that show to be about her. But I was talking to BJ about it, and he said what they could do is have book in the show, basically have Mercedes come out first, like just immediately put her out there, and then close the show with Okada showing up, kind of like they did with All Out 2021 when Bryan Danielson came out and so did Adam Cole. Or maybe it was the opposite. I think Adam Cole came out first and then Danielson comes, and Ruby Soho came on that show. People forget about Ruby Soho again. So that's why I'm worried that I don't want people to be I don't think people are going to overlook Mercedes, and it's not, I just kind of would prefer for them to be kept separate. But if they do them the same night, I would separate them out. Let Mercedes come out first. It's in Boston. It's in her hometown. It's let her have her moment before you bring in Okada. Oh, don't do Okada first, where everybody's like, all they're talking about for 2 hours is Okada, and then Mercedes comes out. They're like, yeah, but Okada. Like, I want them. Mercedes.
They could wait till. I mean, I'm debating in my own head is like, they could wait until Revolution and have him, but then do you want to overshadow Sting's return?
Nothing can overshadow Sting. I think they could do. I think
because they could save Okada for Revolution because that's a big
think they could save. We'll see, and they could even save Ospreay for Revolution. We knew
that would make it an even bigger like that's a high-powered show as it is. So it'd be great to have some fun surprises.
When he signed at Full Gear, he said, "I'll see you in February." He just had his last match for New Japan. I believe Hassan said somewhere way back in the chat, I believe he said he had a Rev Pro date that he has to do first. Yeah. Vinkin says Ospreay deserves a break. Yeah, I can handle. So they could just leave Ospreay and give him a few weeks off and just have him show up at Revolution. They could do the same thing with Okada, but they could do Ospreay after the title match. Maybe he comes out when, I assume, my guess is, and I'm sure we'll talk about it closer, I will not be on the pre-show. I think Samoa Joe is retaining.
I do too.
You could have.
I think that's a good idea.
I think, not that I don't think Hangman or Swerve, I think they both should be champions. We've talked about this many times, how Tony books things and how he plans things well in advance. And I'm almost positive Ospreay was told, if you come to AEW, we will make you champion at All In front of your hometown crowd. Because, I mean, how better to sell him on that? Oh, and also you can sell him in the UK and just come here when we need you. Right. So they could have Samoa Joe retain and have Ospreay come up. I don't think, because I thought that too, I don't think you can overshadow Sting's final match. I think people who are watching the show for Sting's final match, that's what they're going to remember.
And I just be a highlight to the show.
I think that you could, I think you can add to it, but I don't think it would take away. And I think that Tony
that would be, to me, like you're saying, that gives Mercedes Boston, and that's her whole show. And then he's on Revolution, which is a big pop and a big surprise and a big crowd and a big situation. And he's coming out.
And then you could bring Okada,
say goodbye to Sting, and
they could do
the torch.
I mean, maybe they do Ospreay Okada the same show. Like, I get the big business and the big the money theme. Like, I can see that. Like, and I would not be surprised if that's the route they go. I would just separate them as much as possible, or have them walk out together. Like, because there's that picture of the two of them backstage.
Yeah, when they were messing around,
or in the ring together, and there's that picture of them. So, like, you could do that. I really just don't want Mercedes to be overshadowed. And so I think they have to be careful with that. But maybe she's like, hell yeah, bring Okada. Let's make it money and make it rain.
From what I've heard about him, he is a really nice, funny guy. Like, he's like a lot of fun apparently. And so they could have very easily just like become friends and want to do something together because they were goofing around.
Maybe Mercedes is like, hell, let's bring Okada in and have him come with me, and we'll just be out there together.
She's like, I'll put Okada over on my debut.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So perhaps they do that. There's a lot of things that they could do, I think, and I think we've talked about it before, that I think Tony wants to do Sting's retirement right. I think he's putting a lot of effort into it. So I think that if Ospreay comes, that they'll make sure. And that's kind of the thing. Like, I would close with Sting. I don't know if that's what they're going to want to do. I would put the title match sooner. I wouldn't do them back to back if Okada is. If Ospreay. Well, even Okada. If Ospreay is coming at Revolution, I would not put Samoa Joe's match right before Sting's match. I would let it breathe a little bit, let people catch their breath from whoever is signing, and let people settle into the moment with Sting. Who knows? Maybe Sting there's so many good things that they could do with it. I don't think you can overshadow Sting. I think even if Okada comes in that day, I think you can be like this, because when you go back to All In 2021, you're like, that's the show that Adam Cole and Danielson came.
Yeah.
And then we have to remind them. And Ruby Soho was on that show too, but she gets overlooked, especially with the way she's been booked. But like she was there too. But like this show could be a moment that changed because that show kind of defined AEW for a while in the direction that they were going. And then you have Revolution can kind of do that. You and I've talked about this before about how Revolution sets the tone for the year, being the first pay-per-view, and that kind of something big besides Sting's retirement.
I mean, that would make actually a lot more sense because in their like canon in terms of like their history, because Revolution is one of those things. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think you could hold it if you don't think you would overshadow Sting, and I don't think much could overshadow Sting in this situation. I think that I would say if Okada's coming. That's pay-per-view level.
Maybe you can do a video or something that teases Okada or something like that. But then you might
they still have Double or Nothing they need to deal with. So
yeah, I mean, and maybe Okada takes it because Okada, if he's wrestling the 23rd and the 24th, and Revolution is March the 3rd. I mean, he clearly, timing-wise, he could be there. But if Okada wants some time off to kind of process the fact that he's leaving this company after all these years, and maybe he needs some time to kind of decompress for a minute before he shows up. Or maybe he just jumps right in. I don't know. There's so many fun things that they could do. But Mercedes is showing up. That's not even a question anymore. They're doing this. They're doing the CM Punk thing where they strongly hint at it being him, and they don't say it until he walks out in Chicago and the crowd goes nuts. That's what they're doing. That's what I think they're doing with Mercedes. They're going to hint strongly at her. They won't say her name, and then they will open AEW and she will walk out on the stage at 8:02 p.m. she'll walk out there and her music will hit, and then we'll know that she'll address the crowd and then maybe she makes a reference to where she's going to wrestle or something like that. CM Punk did that because he was like, that's when he called for Darby Allin at All Out. So perhaps Mercedes comes out and she called, but then Double or Nothing is, let's say that's March 13th. Double or Nothing is end of May. So she's probably going to wrestle.
So Big Business is on March 13th and Revolution is on March 3rd. So you could easily debut Okada at
or Osprey
or Osprey.
And then it's 10 days.
That's plenty of time to just.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, Okada seems like a pay-per-view debut to me. It's Okada. He's like,
me too.
He's Okada.
Yeah,
he's the greatest.
I know some American fans are like not super familiar with him.
He's the greatest ever. He's certainly the greatest of our time. Like,
yeah. For us, it'll be huge. I guess for some people. Yeah, Vinkin says Osprey's still in the Don Callis family. So yeah, I'm sure Takeshita made a point that because he's in the top 5 in rankings, that means he can challenge.
He might have a chance at the belt. I saw that
perhaps Takeshita. Well, no, I think everybody's going to be locked up though because we'll find out Wednesday if it's going to be Daniel Garcia or Adam Copeland versus Christian at Revolution. But we pretty much know that because Eddie Kingston is wrestling Danielson and Samoa Joe is in the 3-way. So the belts are they all have they're the only ones that don't have a match yet. And then I guess Julia will have a match for the TBS championship.
They seem like they're building something there. So
they're definitely doing something. And then Sky and Willow are wrestling on Wednesday too. And yeah, there's lots of.
They're actually giving the women like story right now.
Wow,
which is nice.
Almost like they're trying to bring in the biggest women's wrestler in the world.
Well, that was what I said. I mean, I was
almost like
amazing how suddenly in January, when everything became much clearer, how suddenly there are pre-announced women's matches and sometimes
and Collisions has had 2 weeks in a row.
Somehow, Collisions are 2. I said this to Bob last night. Collision's a 2-hour show, and they can somehow book 2 women's matches on Collision, but they can't seem to do it on Dynamite yet.
And a backstage segment with women.
Yep.
And you have
You're right.
They did that. And Kevin Kelly last night, I was timing and I was typing, and he said Toni Storm is averaging 9 minutes a match. And I was like, wow, it's like maybe people time matches for a certain
Kevin
reason.
Kelly's
Kevin.
such a smart announcer. He is so good at his job. That's
like,
such a like study. That's a studier.
Remember 3 months ago when you said that timing when you called out people who timed women's matches, and 3 months later you're using it as a stat? Well, funny how that works.
Carnies, man.
I was like, Nikki didn't hear it. I was like, Kevin, so now you care about women's match times?
I mean, like, they're kind of giving it away because they've been so like indifferent to the ladies for such a long time, and now all of a sudden it's like, look, we love women wrestlers, and it's like, right, and we love and Paul has been showing out like the numbers are there, like the women's segments are.
Yeah, this week the women did. Well. I don't remember what the rating was, but the women did a high number on Wednesday.
But he made a point even on our Slack at one point to be like, hey, you guys. You like the fourth quarter of the whatever, the women like beat this and all these things. And I'm just like, okay, so I mean, some of the loudest people on our network for women's wrestling booking are like Jeff Hawkins. So
yeah.
I mean,
I was like, just continue. I'm happy to see all these improvements, but just continue. Just keep going.
Well, I mean, you can't bring Mercedes in and not have
and you also
she's too good of a wrestler, and there's a ton of talent that could really benefit from wrestling her. They really need someone like her in there.
It does. They need her to anchor that division,
and
especially
when
you got like
build
Toni.
Them up. They are a lot of borderline women who need help that would benefit from wrestling her.
Yeah, and Vinkin even says, so ratings wise, are the Bayley segments doing well in WWE? Because I don't know the ratings. I'm not super.
I think
the WWE ratings. I don't pay a very close attention to. I believe that they are doing well with her. Because especially because Bayley is now she got, if you haven't been keeping up, she got jumped by Damage Control, except for Dakota, because Dakota Kai was not there on that SmackDown. She got jumped, and then Bayley. So that's the end of Damage Control. Bayley challenged Io at WrestleMania. And then Dakota Kai showed up on Monday and was like, I've been trying to get in touch with you. I didn't know this was going to happen. And then Dakota saves her. No, as of right now, Vinkin, no, Dakota saved her. They were going to attack her again, and Dakota got a chair, and she helped take everybody else. So as of right now, no. And Bayley, so this was set up for the face turn for Bayley, which people in Slack who I am friends with who still watch WWE regularly have been calling this for months, that this was eventually they were gonna turn, and this was gonna cause Bayley's face turn.
Well, the guys on the wrap, Keela and Scott said that the Women's Rumble and the stuff with Bayley was like the best part of the show.
The Rumble, I went back and I watched the men's Rumble live. I turned it on at number 8, and it was Karrion Kross, who I don't care for.
Whatever.
I've never cared for him. I find him to be very boring. He was boring in TNA to me as well. So I watched that, and it was pretty meh. It wasn't exciting. The women's Rumble I thought was really good. The Bayley stuff was good. Like I talked about a couple weeks ago, Jade's debut was excellent. They made her look great. They teased the stuff with Bianca for future, somewhere down the line type of thing. They did a lot of cool stuff with the women, and so I thought they did a good job. There was some women's stuff that was not great. So there's a couple of wrestlers there who are not ready for the main roster, and they're on there. But so as far as ratings go for Bayley, I'm not positive, but I do know that people like really seem to be into what they're doing with her, and she's finally getting this big Mania match. She's turning into, I don't think she'll go back to Hugger Bayley. But she's definitely going to be a baby face.
Which she should be, because
I love heel Bayley. I think she's a phenomenal heel.
I like Bayley no matter what. I've decided.
Yeah, so I'm really interested to see how this version of her, because she was turned on by her friends, and Dakota's the only one sticking with her.
She could get
and then
really
I saw him a comment way back in the beginning as well about how we've got Mercedes coming in, and then just so he was talking about Jamie Hayter, and I think he said somebody else. Jamie Hayter, I was talking to someone the other day. There's not been an update on her recently. The original rumor was her back in February. As of what we've been hearing, there is no update on her. Her back was apparently very, very bad once they got into surgery. I remember, and I had forgotten this, but the person I was talking to said in the beginning, when the surgery first happened, there were rumors that it was career ending. I don't know if that's still the case or if they're just trying to be very careful with her because her back was so injured. So I don't know what the update is. Maybe they're keeping it quiet so they can surprise us with her return at some point, or maybe just being extremely cautious and making sure they don't rush her back from anything, because I think that was so I don't know
with your spine. It's kind of critical to your infrastructure.
Yeah, because I mean, clearly her and Pac were supposed to be a huge part of Wembley, and she obviously had surgery, and then Pac was dealing with. I think
that's right, because she was going to be a big, and she got hurt.
Yeah, and then Pac was supposed to be heavily involved as well. And then somebody else, I think Venkin said it somewhere in here, that Megan Bain's on the way in.
Oh, that's right.
She should be here as she's finished up with STARDOM. So she should be back at some point. Britt is still having some back issues. She has not had surgery yet, but their surgery has been, I think she's trying to avoid surgery as much as possible. So she's kind of like resting it. And she's also been, Adam Cole has been injured, and think she's been kind of helping with his injury too. So Britt, that's why, Britt's dealing with some back issues as well. And there have been, rumors that she's trying to avoid surgery as much as she can. But, so there are those kind of things that we have to deal with as well. So that's, yes. Yeah, backs and necks are not good, Venkin. Those are definitely some things we got to keep an eye on.
Pretty much don't mess with your spine. It's, it's important. And when it gets out of whack, it's just a pain in the back.
Yes, it is.
Look at me rhyming. Whee! God, we should end on that. That was terrible.
Actually, we won't end on that because I do have a quick note.
You're right. We should end on something better.
So we don't forget. So if you have liked what you have heard, if you have not subscribed already, please subscribe to the Fight Game Media Network YouTube channel. Should have plugged this earlier, but we were talking about some serious topics and didn't want to bring that up then, but I'm bringing it up now. So if you liked it, please subscribe. We are live on Sundays at 1:00. The Dynamite show is live shortly after Dynamite goes off the air. Speaking of Strong Style, is generally on Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. However, tomorrow they will have a very special show at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time to talk about the big New Beginning show that was this morning. As Jeremy pointed out, they are not stupid enough to go against the Super Bowl.
Which is why Sam and I are kind of we better get off here.
Yeah.
We're going to miss the Puppy Bowl.
Right. Right. That is important. Yes. So make sure that you tune in for Speaking of Strong Style tomorrow. Hopefully hopefully I will have at least gotten some of it. I don't know. One of my friends said that he skipped ahead and he watched Okada, Tana, ZSJ, Danielson, and then he watched the cage match. And then I saw him tweet a little while ago and said the cage match had been on for about an hour. So
well,
I will hopefully be there live.
I heard mixed things about the cage match. And again, I was not I'm
trying to avoid stuff because we haven't seen it yet.
I usually check the Discord channels that I'm subscribed to in our Discord regularly to make sure that things are up to date and if there's anybody talking to us. And I obviously plug our stuff in there and so forth. But there's been a lot of talk about a lot of all this stuff going on in our Discord and
Venkin, okay.
Helpful.
Venkin out here with a hot take says that New Japan doing War Games better than the U.S. promotions. All right, okay, Venkin. Well, I'll have to watch it, and we'll come back and talk about that next week. I have heard
mixed things, but
yeah, and and another thing I was gonna say is on top of this, we started Friday night was night one, and we didn't get to it because I had to watch SmackDown and we watched Rampage and then we were watching other stuff. But the Jersey J Cup started.
Oh, that's right.
This is GCW's thing. We watched the one from last year and it was incredible. And there were some really awesome matches and Jordan Oliver won. So this year So last night was the finale. And so last night we watched stage 1, and then we'll have to watch part 2 of it. But the first night was really great. They had
So you haven't seen the Masha Slamovich one yet?
I saw her match with the Man Like the Reese. So that was her first match of the night. So that's what I have seen. I have not seen.
The reason I asked was because a lot of people were putting that over pretty hard. So
yes, so I have not watched night 2 yet. I did watch. So the great Sasuke, was it Sasuke? Yes, Sasuke. He wrestled. So he wrestled in the first Super J Cup in 1994, and so he wrestled last night, or he's wrestling in the J Cup, and
that's awesome.
Night 1 he wrestled Speedball.
I want to see that. I'm into that.
People were booing Speedball. I have never heard Speedball.
Oh my god,
be booed.
I don't know if John knows about that. I'm gonna have to tell him.
Beta is on commentary, and she's like, Speedball comes out first, and people are cheering for him. Then Sasuke, or what is it? I keep wanting to say Sasuke.
Sasuke.
Yes. Sasuke. Okay. So Sasuke comes out and people are just growing crazy, chanting for him. And Beta's on commentary laughing about how her husband is getting booed, and the whole arena is chanting for his opponent.
It's because that guy's been around a long time.
It was really funny. And
he's a famous dude.
And then there was one part where he got, it was a beer mat got put in Speedball's face, and she was like, gross. She's like, that thing's so nasty, and it's in his face. And it was really Veda on commentary for Speedball matches are already really great as it is, but it was really funny. But that match was fantastic.
That is funny. Yes. I like watching Renee tweet when Mox is wrestling. Yeah. So
yes, it's kind of like that. And then they did I keep hearing about the Astronauts, which is a Japanese tag team, but I've never seen them wrestle.
I keep hearing,
last night night 1 they wrestled Violence is Forever for the GCW tag team titles. Cool. That match was awesome. And the Astronauts, I think they've been booked a few times with GCW. I just haven't seen the shows that they were on. But yeah,
that was on wrestling Twitter a lot today too. So that helped
so
water down. It actually helped water down the New Japan stuff, which was nice for me.
Yeah, so I'm hoping I was like, I really want to get to New Japan, but I also want to finish the Super J Cup. And Nikki and I even talked about potentially playing the Super J Cup on the laptop during the Super Bowl because we want to watch it. It's hard not to get spoiled because I'm pretty sure I saw something and did not mean to.
Wouldn't be the worst thing ever. I'm not like super into this game. We're just gonna hang out with people we like and watch it, and it's
So we were joking about that earlier. We were like, well, maybe we turn on the laptop and finish the Super J Cup because night 1 is like 3 hours long because there's all the matches, and they did a really cool scramble match. Billy Starks was in the scramble match. Jordan Oliver has been wrestling in the UK, and he's wrestling there until he's based in the UK until April, and he flew back just to defend his Jersey the JCW title. He defended it against Griffin McCoy, and then I think he has a match on day 2, and then he was like, after the tournament was over, he was going to fly back to England. So but yeah, so I would, if you have the Triller app, I highly recommend watching the Jersey J Cup because last year's was awesome, and this one has been really
sounds
good
like
so far.
Some good matches that I was seeing on. I was like, I want to check this out. So
yes,
I might. It's getting close to the time for me to do my 7-day trial anyway. So
yes. When you do, and then we were watching because Man Like the Reese I have not seen yet, and then that reminded me I did not go back and watch For the Culture from last year because I was watching 9 million shows, and that's the one I kept saying I'll go back to, and then I forgot that it didn't, and I saw Man Like the Reese because I knew he was on that show, and I was like, Nikki, we have to watch For the Culture. It's like we gotta watch it before the next one. It's like we need to get on that, and she was like, okay. No, this is not the same thing. JCW is Jersey Championship Wrestling, not Juggalo Championship Wrestling. Even though Violent J has done some stuff in GCW, then some shady shit came out about him a few weeks ago, or some reminders, and I don't know that he's going to be back in GCW after that.
Juggalos, all the Juggalos are here in Michigan. They're over here. They're not in Jersey. Jersey has its own problems. It doesn't.
They do
need
have
Juggalos too.
This is
Trust me. That's Michigan. That's Michigan territory, man. That's the crazy clowns. Only us mitten people were down with the clown. Is what it is.
I think that the Juggalo show this year, Motor City wrestled on it.
They did,
or the one that last year. Motor
City
wrestled.
Honestly, they do a ton for the community here.
Yes,
regardless
Motor
of
City and Motor City, they were heels on it, and they were like in the cage. Like there was a cage around. Like I saw clips of it, and they were there was a cage around the ring, and people were throwing stuff at Motor City.
Yeah, it's in Flint.
Motor City is heels.
The reason I don't usually prefer that sort of thing is it's in Flint, and everything you've heard about Flint is probably true. So it's, I mean,
understandable.
I say that as someone who went to a GCW show at a place in Detroit that could have probably caved in at any time, but was also like the coolest building at the same time.
Right.
And actually, like the guy that was checking everybody at the door laughed when he saw me. Didn't even like pat me down or anything because I'm so small and like I was just like me in my bag. And he's this giant dude and he's like checking people for, because they throw bottles, they throw all kinds of stuff when the stuff gets crazy. So, and he looked at me and he kind of was like, yeah, you're fine. It was like, thanks a lot, dude.
Go on in.
I mean, when you looked around at everyone else, I mean, what's the whole thing is like, I'm as tall as Commander, maybe. But I actually am taller than Marco Stunt. That's the only one I know for sure. So,
well, there's that. Take your wins where you can get them.
It's I'm like almost.
I'm also.
I'm almost a foot taller than him.
I think I am taller than Marco Stunt, but I am taller than Vikingo because Vikingo is little. Vikingo's like 5'3" or 5'4". Like he's tiny.
Vikingo and Commander that they're constantly giving out to for being small, like.
Yeah, Vikingo, and like I saw Vikingo obviously at GCW, and I met him, and like it was funny because it was the tables of like all the people afterwards, and we couldn't see Vikingo because he was like the crowd was blocking him at his table because he's so small. You couldn't see him, and then he was stuck in between. His table was in between Effie. No, I think Effie was 2 tables down, and then SGC was next to him, so it was Matthew Justice, and Matthew Justice is very, very tall. And then there's tiny little Vikingo.
Well, and Effie's setup from when we were there, I mean, Effie's got a pretty like the merch booth over there is going on.
Oh yeah, his lines they're insane when
Effie knows.
Like we went just to say hey to him, and the line was crazy. And there was even after Big Gay Brunch, they were showing this there was this picture and like the ring was being torn down and people were still in Buffy's line waiting to meet them.
I believe it.
because of that. So yes. So but yeah. So I think we covered everything and some extra stuff. So thank you for hanging out with us this whole time. Definitely make sure that you check out Speaking of Strong Style tomorrow at 5:30 if you are a New Japan fan and if you have watched New Beginnings by then, because they're definitely going to spoil it. So I will tell you that now.
It will be there.
So that's why I don't know if I'll be able to watch it live, because it depends on when I get to see that. And but yeah, so we'll see. And but yeah, we'll be here next Sunday at 1:00. Hopefully we Daza.
Go Kansas.
Go and 2. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and 2 Sundays.
It will be our birthday.
I think I was gonna say it'll be our birthday. Technically, it's that Tuesday, but we're gonna have our birthday party on the 25th.
Yeah,
because Mel is now able to be here because of stupid in real life stuff. She'll be here, and then the next week I will be at Revolution, and so we have secured an honorary broad to fill
one of our favorite honorary broads
to do the big pre show, since I will be on site. And so we have,
and then Sam will report back to you guys afterwards because she has to, because she needs to tell me.
Yeah, so I do.
And then we'll record it for you.
Yes, and the day before our birthday show is Ashe 2.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, and they have announced. They haven't said yet.
I think the pay-per-view thing is on there though.
I think they announced on the 19th how to watch Ashe from home. I believe the 19th is the date that they
said that they were. I saw a thing because I retweeted it that they were going to have info coming up about watching online again. So, because I'm waiting, I'm just waiting. I'm camping their thingy so I can buy it.
I'm really excited about that.
Well, because we need some fun, and that's like I was thinking about that last night when I realized that was coming right by our birthday, and I was like, you know what? That's exactly what wrestling needs right now.
Yeah,
just to
on our
feel
birthday
good.
Show, I will definitely report back about. Well, and then Mel will be watching, so that we will talk about it together. Well, like we did last time, which was really fun because I got to give the perspective from being in the building, and Mel got to give the perspective from watching, and so that was fun because
it was.
And like, because she obviously gets to hear commentary and I don't, so she gets to hear some cool things, and so I'm excited about that show. So excited about Sunny Kiss. Getting to see them. I haven't seen that. I had forgotten. Nikki and I saw them at Fight for the Fallen. We got to see them. And so I'm very excited about seeing her. I'm excited about actually a lot of the matches. And so, yeah. So there's some good stuff coming up. So as much as we talk about the terrible things, there are some really good things that deserve our attention. And Ashe is definitely one of them.
Definitely.
For sure. So yeah, I guess that is it for us. And we will be back next week. And thank you for spending time with us. And we hope that you have a good week.
Have a good one.